All right, we are live. Welcome, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to the Great Debate Community Channel, a YouTube channel brought to you by Steve McCrae. I'm your host tonight, John Peterson. As you may have saw it in the thumbnail, oh, sorry, I got brain cramp there. The computer was giving me a message that, the Google Hangouts is going away later this year. So I can see why they were so urgent to tell me that right this second. But anyway, as you saw in the thumbnail, we really don't have a topic tonight. We're going to put a topic out to our panel. And here's Mr. McCobb. Let me present him to the world.
Hey, dude. I just woke up.
Hey. Oh, okay. Well, just give me a minute here. I'm talking to the audience, and we'll get going here. The other thing is that if anybody wants to support Steve and send in a super chat, I've got Cheshire Vic checking the chat out for me. If you want to send in a super chat, send in a topic, we will try to get to it. Just so you know, Steve is allowing me to do streams here on the GDC, and I generally am doing one a week and might take a week off here, but 3 or 4 a month. I have nothing to do with the channel as far as, making any money. It's just a hobby for me. So just rest assured, if you want to show your support for Steve and what he's been going through lately and support his second channel here, then just rest assured it's going to Steve. I have nothing to do with it. Now I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and I want to start with a couple of people that we haven't had here before. One of which is Patient Beard. Is it okay to call you Jared, or did I just dox you?
No, that's I usually introduce myself as Jared, and I run the Patient Beard channel. That's how I kind of introduce it.
And we also are joined tonight by Muppets. He is the third leg of the Slippery Slope show that's going to start up production here in a few short months. Muppets, you have anything to say in introduction?
Not really, except that I've been part of the GGC for a long time. I just take a backseat role, mostly.
Oh, okie doke. And one of our weekly regulars, Cheshire Vic, is here. Hi, Cheshire.
Hello. I'm nobody. I do art.
You do art.
We're working on building a comedy sketch show.
I always love how succinct you are. All right. And we're also joined today by Disciple of Kairos, Jim Majors.
Hey, everybody.
And all the way from the bottom of the world, from a place that, according to flat earthers, does not exist in Australia, Mr. McCobb, how you doing tonight?
Hey, not too bad. Good morning, everyone. For me, everyone on my side of the world. Mr. McCobb, as the name suggests, I like matter that's macabre. Also quite malefic at times. Anyway, I'm looking forward to the conversation. Slippery Slope show, guys. I had an awesome idea. I'd like to see a new character on your show. Norris the Nefarious Narwhal.
Oh, hold on. I need a pen.
I feel like that's contradictory. Narwhals are adorable.
Yeah, but he's a nefarious. He can still be adorable and nefarious.
A nefarious, adorable narwhal?
Yeah.
Down.
All right, let's keep moving here. And might I add, Mr. McCobb, you sound exactly like your avatar tonight.
I haven't had his coffee yet.
And another regular to our festivities here, the Raging Atheist.
What's up, you blasphemous peoples and messenger?
I loved your video you put out earlier today, Raging, and I just loved it when you're doing videos like that, when you are like telling a story or like doing a like a response to somebody that isn't you sitting there watching their video or whatever. Just, I don't know, your cadence and the way you talk when you're doing those videos it's kind of like, I don't know, I just envision you like in some coffee house somewhere, like delivering poetry. You know what I mean? It's
thank you, man. Actually, I got that from doing coffee house slam poetry, poetry slams. So yeah, like you picked up on that 100% exactly.
All right. Last but not least, our feature channel tonight, the Messenger Reveals. John, how you doing tonight?
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on. Good to see everybody here tonight. And I am the residential favorite non-theist in the channel.
The non-theist theist. Now, if you
everybody's favorite, everybody non-theist favorites, not theist.
Well, I mean, and if people can't appreciate the nonsense in that statement, I don't know what else to tell them. But so now I will add too that the idea that and you've been on the GDC with us here since I started a couple times, and the kind of the idea that I would have you on right now, I'd be interviewing you about your channel. If someone had told me that 3 months ago, I would have told them they were crazy. Sure. Because you and me, we didn't hit it off right off the bat when we met. But that's not But that's nothing to nothing to discuss now. We are getting along now, and I got a lot of respect for you. I can't say I agree with everything that you say, and that nor should any two people necessarily agree on everything. But let's talk about your channel for a few minutes. Just to start, just take a couple minutes here and kind of like, for lack of a better term, give us your curriculum vitae, will you?
Sure. I mean, I run the Messenger Reveals. My name is John. Live out of Arizona. Don't mind doxing myself, because you want to come find me, come see me. No, my channel is a theist channel. I do believe in God. We call him the Father. And I do believe in his son, Jesus. And I do believe in the teachings of Jesus, though I would not say that I don't call myself a Christian. And I don't support the mainstream modern day Christian community. I'm not, as many of you have seen, I oppose theists more harshly than I opposed most non-theists. I really just stand for humanity. I stand for human behavior. If you're a bigot, I'm going to challenge you. If you say you know something, I'm going to squeeze you. If you believe in something, you should be willing to have it tested, challenged, pushed. And that's what I do. And I have a unique insight into human behavior. And it's my understanding of human behavior that leads to my theist beliefs and supports my theist beliefs. I don't need the Bible, like most Christians, to be a presuppositionalist and use that as my foundation for believing God or the teachings of Jesus. But my understanding of human behavior certainly substantiates it. And I have several videos out there unpacking those things from Scripture, I believe correctly interpreting the teachings of Jesus and other things that are in the Bible, and also debunking and refuting the things that the Hebrews claimed about God that basically were false and just their way of condoning and giving credence to what they were doing, but it was really them that did it, not God.
Well, and now I can see, and again, you're not the only theist here tonight. I know that for a fact. But I do see that we came in here without a topic tonight, and maybe we might end up springboarding off some of the things you're saying. That's up to the panel. But could you, because I know that if you go to your channel and you look at the channel information, I believe you do use the phrase that being a better disciple of Christ, or I am a disciple of Christ, or anything. So just take a minute and explain to us, how do your views differ from mainstream Christianity, in that you don't identify as a Christian per se, even though you do consider yourself a follower of Christ? Sure.
And I'll start with, first off, Christians mentioned 2 times in the New Testament. Once was in the book of Acts, second was in the second book of Peter. And the first time it was mentioned, it says they were first called Christians at Antioch. And then the second time when Peter mentioned it, he said, even if I'm persecuted as a Christian, I'll still rejoice. So I look at the term Christian as a derogatory term that pagans or other non-believers were using to villainize or demonize or make fun of believers or followers of Jesus. So that's one of the reasons I don't subscribe to it. Number 2 is their belief system is based on basically foundations from the Roman Catholic Church, which turned into the Reformers and the Protestant Church. Puritans came over from England to America, and they just continued to perpetuate false beliefs and false teachings because they really didn't understand what Jesus' message was. And then because the Apostle Paul screwed up a bunch of things and was apologetic about stuff that he didn't understand, it further perpetuated the lies and the falseness of what people, I would say probably the majority of you, why you guys left, who are former theists and now are atheists or agnostic, left Christianity was because you can't look at this 66, canonized letters and books of the Bible and say it's the true, inspired, infallible Word of God. And so I would say that's one of the main things is I do not believe that the Bible is the true, inspired, infallible Word of God. And I don't call the Bible the Word of God, though I will call it Scripture. There's things in it that are true. There's things that are untrue. I do not believe that Jesus was the Jewish Messiah that they were waiting for from Old Testament prophecy. I think the scriptures that people try to draw correlations between Jesus as that Messiah are unfounded, and I can prove in many scriptures how that's untrue. Jesus did not, in my opinion, die for our sins. He never mentioned his crucifixion as an atonement for sin in any of the quotes that were in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, or any of the Gnostic Gospels. And then finally, I believe that the apostles who wrote letters and books in the New Testament got things wrong. They misquoted the Old Testament. They miscited the Old Testament. They misunderstood the Old Testament. They screwed up the genealogies. There's just a lot of mistakes and errors in the New Testament related to the Old Testament that just don't follow. However, from my perspective of understanding human behavior, it still doesn't deny that Jesus' teachings were perfect, in my opinion.
Hold on a second, Cheshire. Let me step in here and say I want to ask you something here, and then let's start to wrap this up because, as Cheshire just said, she has a question. I know Jim Majors is here and Patient Beard is here tonight. I think they're going to have some questions for you, so I think we are going to springboard off of your interview into some questions and topics, but I just ask everybody to hold their peace for just 2 more minutes here. So, you mentioned psychology, and it seems that you want to integrate psychology into your religious beliefs. I mean, do you think that those two things are compatible with one another?
That's a good question. I absolutely do believe that psychology and the teachings of Jesus are 100% compatible. And there's a lot of even scripture in the Old Testament that links to it. One of the things that I, have understood with human behavior is everything that we, do as far as our actions, behaviors, choices, decisions, and expressions results from internal processes that are going on. The Bible, in many instances, referred to those things as the heart or soul or the mind. So our internal being dictates things. And many people, even in the atheist community, would agree that, we're deterministic beings, or if they don't subscribe to that, they'll at least go towards compatibilism, which I can refute, and we can go and have a debate about that. But the notion and myth of free will, and those who hold the free will, is a very theistic belief. And it's basically ascribing that in order for fairness, equality, and justice to be in effect, there must be an effect of free will. And that's not necessary. So, like I said, from what I can break down and tell you about human behavior and why you act and behave the way you do, when Jesus was talking about his teachings and about repentance, he was talking about a transformation within. He wasn't talking about some mystical, atonement that he was going to make through some crucifixion and resurrection for the atonement of your sins. It was through a change within you that created that freedom from sin or wrongdoing.
Okay.
What all right. So talking
here,
about during the Last Supper.
Hold on.
I promise this is
no. Hold on, Jim. Hold on. We're going to go to you, but Cheshire's going to get in there first. But first of all, I got to wrap this up with Messenger. All right. So again, what's the name of your channel?
It's the Messenger Reveals. I can put a link in the live chat. I think you're putting one in the description.
Right. As soon as this posts a video, we'll get all the guest information in there. We'll get your information in there. And if you guys, go to Messenger Reveals, sub to his channel. There's a lot of content up there already. It's mostly just discussions with you and other people, isn't it?
No, I have some teachings out there that I do with my brother Patrick, and we do teachings. One of them is for theists. We call it Secrets of the Kingdom. It's a series, and then the second one was Unplugged from Worldly Thinking.
Okay, all right.
That one's more about human behavior and why we do what we do and how to become a better version of yourself.
Okay, and look, I want to thank you for doing this tonight. I also want to thank you in that I don't think we're going to have to struggle for a topic after you spoke. Cheshire asked to get in first. Jim, you're going to go next. And just a reminder, just please let's not talk over one another so that the audience can hear what's going on. Cheshire, take it away.
I want to waive mine and let Jim go because mine's from a little bit further back, and he just said something for Jim to respond to.
So. Okay. Well, no, I agree with her. If yours is the most fresh, and then we'll let her go and jump back further. So go ahead, Jim. You had a question that from something you said just a moment ago.
I was just going to ask you what you thought Jesus was talking about during the Last Supper account in Matthew when he says, "This is the blood of the covenant, which will be shed on behalf of many for the forgiveness of sins."
Well, when he was talking about the blood, only the King James Version uses the term "shed." If you look at the Greek translation of the word, it's a poured out. So it's an idiom.
Well, no. The New American Standard uses it.
No, it doesn't. No, you're wrong.
Sorry.
No, you're wrong. Only the King James Version in English uses the word "shed." If you go to NASB or if you go to NIV,
look at the New American Revised Edition.
New American Revised Edition.
I'm talking about New American Standard
right now.
Revised.
Yeah, Messenger just said he's talking about New American Standard.
Matthew 26:28.
If you go to Bible Gateway,
Messenger, meet Jim.
I know who Jim is.
For this is the blood of the covenant, which will be shed on behalf of many for the forgiveness of sins.
So if it is that way in a second English translation that I'm unaware of, that's cool. But my point being is if you go look at that, if you go look at that
hold on, Jim. Go ahead,
if you go look at that translation in the Greek, the word "shed" is a poor translation of it. And the King James was the one that used it because it was translating from the Latin Vulgate.
Okay. All right, hold right there, though, Messenger. Go ahead, Jim. Just I don't want to get too far down the same rabbit hole. Go ahead, Jim. Respond to that. What he just said.
Okay, not to get too far off the point. So, what do you believe that is being said here? What is the blood and what is being done for the forgiveness of sins?
The blood was a symbol, which was actually the cup. The cup and the blood was the symbol of the new covenant, and the new covenant was that when there was a change in your inner being, and this comes from the book of Jeremiah 31, when there was a change in your inner being, that there would be, which is through a process of repentance or repent, that then there would be a forgiveness of sins. You can see this reference in the book of Luke. You can see that the repentance for the forgiveness of sins was the actual translation and teaching. Jesus' gospel was about repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near or is within. So when Jesus is referring to the bread of life, he's referring to truth that originates from the Father, which are things that about life and understanding that make you a healthier and better version of yourself. And it was that transformation, which is what repent means. It's a Greek word meaning metanoia. You can't use the Hebrew words, which they use the words shuv and cham from the Old Testament. And you'll see many Christians try to use that Hebrew definition of the word repent that's in English to justify and validate what repent means in the New Testament.
In a few minutes.
Okay. So
how
do you explain all of the imagery to Jesus being the Passover lamb, to the cup of blessings, to these special prayers that are being done? Let this cup pass from me.
Jared, mute. There we go. Sorry about that.
Already go.
Start again, Jim.
Oh.
Just so you know, I want Jim. Hold on. I want Jim. You go ahead.
Was I unmuted for that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. But Jim, you go ahead with your point, and then Messenger, you give a response, and then I want to get to some other people. Cheshire still wanted to get in. I want to hear what Patient Beard has to say, and I mean we just got a lot of people in here. So go ahead, Jim.
Okay. How do you explain things like the imagery? Alluding to Jesus being the Passover lamb sacrifice, being the surrounding the Passover meal, the meal itself being very symbolic, the 4 cups being drunk, Jesus in Gethsemane praying, if you are able or if you are willing, depending on which translation or which gospel you're reading out of, it says, "Let this cup pass from me." So there's a lot of imagery, even with like the sour wine. So how do you explain that?
Which one do you want me to start with? Because if you're asking a 4-part question,
Well, any of them. What I'm showing
No, he's
is
asking
that
one question with four
is that-
examples.
No, that's actually
what I'm
four
showing
different-
is that it was an obvious early tradition or early belief that Jesus was a sacrifice for sins.
That's incorrect, because the earliest teachings and the earliest followers of Jesus did not believe that Jesus was a sacrifice for sin. The earliest believers.
How do you explain all this imagery?
Well, you're talking about only one gospel that accounted for Jesus as the Lamb of God, which was in the book of John. It wasn't in the book of Matthew, wasn't in the book of Mark, wasn't in the book of Luke, was not contained in the Acts. So what you're referring to?
What about the Passover meal?
Hold on, we're not
Passover
done.
meal and the prayer in Gethsemane.
Well, we'll talk about each of those. Remember, you got to give me a chance to respond to each one. So I'm going to talk to the first thing that you addressed, which is him being the Passover lamb. The first thing is only a female, young, perfect lamb was ever a substitute for sacrifice for sin by poor people.
When was it ever female? I don't remember reading that ever anywhere.
You have to go into the book of Leviticus if you want to understand when a ewe or a female lamb was used in sacrifice for an atonement to sin.
Oh, is a ewe specifically a female lamb?
Well,
Yes,
when it's referring to, and it wasn't just a female lamb; it had to be a young, so it had to be.
Yeah, I knew they were like young lambs, they were like adolescent-ish, but I wasn't sure that they were actually female.
But that was for sacrifice. When you talk about the Passover lamb was not a sacrifice. The Passover lamb was in reference to when they painted the blood above the doors so that the judgment of Egypt would not fall on the sons of the Hebrews, and it would actually fall on the sons of the Egyptians only. And that Passover was
because God couldn't tell the difference.
So they didn't sacrifice a lamb?
And what you're talking about here is you're talking about John's understanding of Scripture and his Jewish beliefs for it. So a lot of times,
Jewish.
A lot of times when the apostles were trying to understand the teachings of Jesus, they were getting it wrong. Muppet, get up, pen and paper, write your thought down, please.
Yeah, I look, I forgot to mention at the beginning, there's so many of us in here. If you get a thought and you're afraid you're going to lose it, before you get in, just jot a note down if you got some paper handy. Go ahead.
I've got about 5 minutes before I got to go.
Right. And that's another thing, Messenger, kind of, take another 30 seconds and wrap up your point, because I got to get Patient Beard in here before he's got to leave.
Remember, I'm not trying to wrap up a point. I'm trying to address 4 different parts to Jim's question.
Well, no, but as Cheshire pointed out, it was a one question with 4 examples of what about that?
What I'm saying is that you don't have to go through each example to address what his question was. The question is via these examples, how was Jesus not represented as a sacrifice?
Because he wasn't a sacrifice. When you talk about the sacrifice for sin, it had to be a burnt offering. Was Jesus a burnt offering?
No, it did not have to be a burnt offering.
It absolutely did when it had to do with sacrifice of blood.
Really? Okay,
because
what was Yom Kippur? Was that a sacrifice of blood?
I'm not talking about Yom Kippur. I'm talking about
sacrifice. Yes or no?
It wasn't an atonement for sin.
I think I agree with Messenger.
Yom Kippur was not an atonement for sin.
I don't think it talks about us. I don't think Jesus thought he was a sacrifice at all. I think Jesus was quite surprised that it ended the way it did.
The earliest believers of Christianity believed that Jesus was a martyr.
Okay, all right, right there. Hold right there. Patient Beard explained to me he was going to have to leave real quick, and he does a lot of debates. I guess see us on Modern Day Debate Channel, another channel we're going to feature in the future. But let Patient Beard jump in here. Sorry, Messenger. It looks like you're going to be you're going to be taking on everybody here tonight, but maybe maybe Mr. Macabre will jump in on your side here because I think he is the other theist in the room. But go ahead, Patient Beard, get in there.
My question is you had mentioned earlier about the perfect teachings of Jesus, and I was curious if you what you held to as far as when the Gospels were written, because historians, as I understand it, agree that Mark was written first around 70, and everybody else plagiarized off of that. So I guess how would you justify that those beliefs actually even came from Jesus?
Well, you're absolutely right.
There's two parts. Jim, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying you're absolutely right. I wouldn't be able to.
What do you have to say to that, Messenger?
So most historians will agree that Mark was the first gospel written, and that both Matthew and Luke had borrowed or plagiarized from certain scriptures. John's gospel absolutely had nothing to do with either of the three synoptic gospels, which are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And of course, there's numerous Gnostic gospels that accounted for the life and teachings of Jesus as well. And then there was also the early church leaders and founders that created written.
Well, my question was, if they're written in 70 AD and later, how do you know that? How do you know that
they weren't? So
no,
when were they written then?
I believe the book of Mark was written somewhere between 50 and 60 AD.
70 is the number of the consensus, as far as I understand.
Yeah, Patient Beard is exactly right.
I don't think so, because I could have swore that they believed that the account of Mark was written in somewhere in 50 to 60 AD by most accounts.
So even if it is 10 years later, that still doesn't address the question.
Yeah, how do we know that this actually came from Jesus and not just somebody else writing about somebody else or making it up?
Because as far as I know, Jesus was long dead even as of 50 AD. So,
well, of course he was. I mean, if you look at his accounts, he died somewhere around his 33rd birthday. He was born somewhere in 4 BC. So you're probably thinking about his death was probably in 28 to 30 AD. So I don't disagree with that. In regard to the synoptic gospels, they didn't completely plagiarize off each other. Like I said, my understanding of human behavior and the teachings of Jesus within his parables and the way that he spoke, especially when it comes to the parable of the sower, and also when he was teaching on the kingdom, when he talked about the kingdom of heaven is like, and he talked about the parables related to that, it was 100% related to an inner transformation of being, and not necessarily, hey, you're just all a bunch of imperfect fuckers, and guess what? I'm going to atone for all that type of sin and misguidance, and I'm going to be sacrificed for your sins. I'm going to resurrect, and that's going to be why you can have eternal salvation with me, is because now you have a magic Jesus shield to help get you to heaven.
And how do you know? How do you know that
you're just not following? Because I don't think you understand my theology.
How do you know it was? You know, because, I'm going to let Muppets go because he's jumping up and down over there.
Right. And I just messaged Muppets in the internal chat. Hey, get you in as soon as Jared's done.
You're right. I'm just reacting physically to what he's saying.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so if there's something you wanted to wrap up on, Jared, then yeah, we can start getting some other.
It doesn't really demonstrate that Jesus, that these are actually from Jesus or anything, because we have Jesus lived, Jesus died 20 or 30 years, and then we have stuff that's written down about what Jesus said and did. Like, how do you know that this is actually not the what Jesus said and what Jesus meant to say 20 to 30 years removed from the actual events?
Because human beings, by and large, are very ignorant when it comes to our human behavior, how and why we act and behave the way that we do. The fact that he understood that it was not about acting the right way on the outside, which is that somebody comes and tells you what to do, how to act, how to behave, and that's the correct way to be. And then you spend your life trying to act and emulate it without realizing the internal processes that come in an inner transformation that would be necessary for those things to be authentic.
Messenger. Let me stop you right there. You're obfuscating. You're not addressing the question that Jared
I am addressing the question. Here's the issue, John. You guys are having an inability to follow this because you don't understand human behavior. So when I'm trying to sit there and draw a correlation between psychology and I'm drawing a correlation to theology, you're misunderstanding.
Well, let me ask. Hold on.
Because you have predisposed beliefs about Christianity. So when I'm explaining them,
hold on. Wait a minute. Let me grant you that. What you just said, I'm going to own that. You're absolutely right. Let's grant that premise. Okay. Let me ask everybody in the room, including Mr. McCobb, when Messenger started speaking a moment ago, was he addressing the question that Jared asked him? Anybody want to say yes to that?
Yes, but
I really want to, but I can't in good conscience do it.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. McCobb. Go ahead, Mr. McCobb.
Yes, but Messenger is trying to provide context.
I'm trying to provide context to show you how I know that's true, and you guys are too quick to sit there and jump and go. That still doesn't prove that Jesus said it.
The answer is that the thing is you're trying to provide this context, but this is the second or third time you've provided the context without answering the question.
Because
We
you guys are too
understand
impatient.
your.
No, you're not. You're too impatient.
All right, well, I'll
coming.
tell you what. Let's do this then. All right. If you contend we're being too patient, let's grant you that premise.
Sure.
So skip your
take-
explanation now and give us the answer. We understand the explanation. We understand the what you're trying to set up. Now answer the question then.
No human being that didn't truly understand human behavior could have come up with a story of parables that were so perfect.
What specifically could they have not known?
Perfect. Okay, how do you explain the chronological differences in the Gospels and the placement of them, and things like the Sermon on the Mount? It's obvious that these were just a series of oral or possibly written traditions that were just a clipping of something. Nobody knows when Jesus said this or who he was directing this to. It's all conjecture.
You say it's conjecture because you don't understand the parables yourself. That's my point. If you
How do you explain the chronological differences?
What is divine? What is divine in there?
One at a time first. And if Jim asks a question,
Okay, Jim asked a question, but let me try and encapsulate that question, because it sounds like what you're saying, Messenger, is you're saying that that Jesus's message was just so perfect and so complex that it could not have been actual human beings that came up with that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly, because there was no.
But how do you substantiate that, though? That's the core question.
The Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were the experts and the high priests and the knowledgeable, educated people at the time, especially the Pharisees, hated Jesus's teaching because they thought he was exalting himself as the Most High,
according to the story.
But the thing is the teachings in the parables are so amazing and profound and perfect if you truly understand them and understand human behavior. My point is, you guys don't get it. That's why you left Christianity.
What about parables? Like can you name one specific parable where they
modern day mainstream Christianity?
Hold on. Point of order. You're talking over one another, and the outside, the people that are viewing can't hear what you're saying. So go ahead.
I was talking.
Well, right. All right. Well, go ahead and take a minute and wrap up what you're saying. And then Patient Beard was trying to respond to you. Jim's got his hand up, so he goes after Jared. Go ahead, Master.
I have a thing because he's throwing a conniption every time I speak.
Well,
if he has to say, let him speak.
Well,
I'm trying to get you back on track.
Yeah, and Jared has to leave in a minute anyway. So, but Muppet, we got all night too. We stay as long as you want. So go ahead, Messenger.
So my point being is, I completely get why you guys left modern day mainstream Christianity for those who are prior theists, because the interpretation of Scripture or the Bible by Christians is absolutely ignorant and false.
Bold of you to assume.
So it's easy to sit there, and it's easy for me to go sit there and get into it. The second thing is how I live my life is a testimony to what I believe and what I preach and what I share in regard to those teachings. I can do what the majority of you can't do. I'm free from what a majority of you are not free from.
Okay,
so special.
Cognitive
dissonance. Jared, go ahead. Jared, go ahead and respond, and then.
Can you give me an example of one of Jesus's teachings in the Bible that is so profound that it could not have possibly come from a human source? It had to have been a divine source.
Well, when you say a divine source, are you thinking about a supernatural God, or are you thinking about a perfect being?
I'm thinking about something that's more than just a normal human, because you told me that it couldn't be a human. So what? I'm not asking about the where it came from. I want to know what parable in there, or what passage is so profound that it could not have been written by man, that it had to have come from somebody smarter than the man who wrote it 2,000 years ago.
So, and I'll base this answer on the differences from what you read in the Old Testament to what you read in the New Testament. Is that fair?
Well, he's asking for an example. So the first thing you should say is give us a scriptural example.
The scriptural example, and here's the thing: if people don't understand what I just said, they're going to jump on it. The example is the parable of the sower could not have been provided by mankind at the time because nobody else had provided it up to that point.
Why?
So your argument is that if nobody had made it up before that point, that it couldn't have been, it couldn't have happened?
Yeah, dude, that makes sense. Like Harry Potter.
everything originates and builds upon itself. So if you look at even anything in science, it takes an experiment and an idea before anybody can build upon that experiment and idea. So when you have something as profound as the parable of the sower, where was the original predispositions of belief and experiment before that?
Messenger, I gotta call bullshit on that, dude.
Yeah, what about the parable of Harry Potter?
Society.
Tell me about
No,
the parable of Harry Potter.
so specifically, we're talking about an agrarian society. I mean, they lived in the fields and they sowed the seeds and they watched them grow. The reason Jesus used that as the imagery is for the reason that everyone understood.
Know your audience. That's
You know how,
And the
how
other thing,
wrong that
and
answer
the other thing
by
is,
both of you?
Messenger, just so you know,
Let me respond to that, John. Let me respond to both of them.
all I'm doing is pointing out. I just want you to know that Mr. Macabre is the other theist in the room. So
Well,
he's
let me
asking
disagree
you
with
the
him.
other theist. Yeah, go ahead, please do.
Okay, so I'm addressing Macabre, and I know that Cheshire, chimed in agreement with him. Jim, hold on. So in regard to Macabre and what he said, you guys basically said, well, he gave an easy example because he needed to know and consider his audience. When he told the parable of the sower and his disciples didn't get it, what was Jesus' response to them? Because the disciples exactly asked Jesus, that was accounted. He said, why do you speak to everybody in parables? What was Jesus' answer, Macabre?
Please fill me in, mate. I'm reaching into my brain, but nothing's coming out.
Okay, so I will respond to that because I do have the answer. Jesus said, to you, the truth has been revealed, but to others, I speak in parables so that hearing they may not understand, and though seeing they may not perceive. So Jesus accounted for in that one profound parable of the sower that his own disciples didn't get, nobody got. And he said, the reason I speak to people is to hide truth, not reveal truth.
that sounds
So-
creepy.
Well, that's what's written in the scripture. So if you don't understand the scripture, I completely understand that.
Jim, do you want to go and then my turn?
Go ahead,
I just
go
want to
ahead.
thank you all for having me on this evening. I'm out.
Hey, Jared,
it
real
was a
quick,
good
what's your channel name?
My channel is Patient Beard, and anyone who wants to email me, it's patientbeard@gmail.com. And I am planning on starting a daily stream at 9 a.m. Eastern. I just need anybody who wants to argue with me or talk to me or whatever you want to discuss, send me an email and we'll do it. So
All right.
thank you guys and
Hey, thanks, Jared.
enjoy the discussion.
We'll have you on again soon, buddy.
Thank you.
Hi, dude.
All right, so
My
right.
question's gonna pull us off topic.
Okay, well,
So if Jim wants to go.
and then if I could, Cheshire too, if Jim could go, and then if we could please get Muppets in before you go, because he has been gesticulating for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, Muppets can go ahead of me too. That's fine.
I'm here. What's happening?
Well, you just listen for a minute, and I'm sure you'll come up to speed. Jim, go ahead. You had your hand up.
David Meat Messenger reviews.
Hey, we've met. We chatted before.
So,
Go ahead, Jim.
am I muted?
Nope, you're good.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so these parables, many of these parables, right? They're rooted in the Old Testament. They aren't Jesus's original works. And you're talking about something that we can extrapolate human psychology, I believe you said. But I would argue that even Aesop's fables we can get the same thing from that. We can get the same perception of humans and how we act and how we think.
Okay, so you're making a generalization. Can you tell me where the teaching of the parable of the sower is rooted in Scripture, and read that Scripture for me, please?
I didn't say the parable of the sower.
You said these parables are
some of the
rooted in
parables.
Old Testament Scripture, and I disagree with you. So provide what you just made an assertion for.
I did not assert that the parable of the sower was rooted in the Old Testament.
No, you said parables, and you said the parables of Jesus were rooted in the Old Testament, therefore not anything new.
Some of the
or
parables,
profound.
yes, they were.
Can you give any examples of those?
Okay, so we have rabbinic texts that and Talmudic texts where it was they would have these rabbinic parables that they would write that were often filled with morals, that Jesus uses many of their same ideas, and he transforms them, so to speak, right?
No, I don't agree with that. So can you stop generalizing and provide a specific example and where these texts are written that we can go substantiate your assertion?
So the only one that I can think of is the sorry, I'm having a mind fart right now. But the Hebrew word that was used to refer to a parable was mashal, and it's used all throughout the Old Testament, all throughout when referring to the prophets. You just do a simple search of mashal, M-A-S-H-A-L, and you'll see that it's all throughout the Old Testament.
See, and I don't believe it is.
Like I can do it real quick, and I can pull some up. I can't think of the exact ones off the top of my head.
See, because even if you look at the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah's prophecy was that the Hebrew people continue to fail God. So therefore, the old covenant was not working. Everything that was going on with the Hebrew and Jewish people wasn't working. And
God's plan wasn't working? Oh, no.
God's plan was working perfectly. The Hebrews is what you think, that like everything that you read in the Old Testament, you guys are drawing the assertion that that is the true, inspired, infallible word of God. So therefore, every time the Hebrews sit there and said, God told us to, or God saith, or God commandeth, you believe that that's true for all theist beliefs. I'll tell you that those Hebrew people did those things to justify and validate their own actions and behaviors as human beings, and that God had nothing to do with it.
Okay, look, Muppets. Go, Muppets.
So, just out of curiosity, you make a lot of generalized statements about believers, just in general, and specific about like how we had to be believers at some point to disprove some of your points, and then you argue against that from that perspective. As a person who was a believer, and I can say this, and believe the almost exact wording as you do right now, I find this very frustrating as a person who's agnostic, because there's no way you can possibly know the mindset of these ancient believers or know the actual subtext that they're talking about. You have no access to the original documents. Am I correct?
No, I don't. Neither does anybody.
That's not important. You have no access to the original documents, correct?
No.
You also don't have a way to talk to these individuals of ancient times, correct?
Correct.
So do you have a way to verify your information?
Yes.
How?
My understanding of human behavior.
Your human behavior is 100%.
100%.
Really?
So that's kind of where my question comes in a little bit, if Muppets doesn't mind me jumping
That's
in.
fine. I think that's getting to the fundamentals of what.
Yeah. So I have a quick question. Do you think you're a prophet?
Of course.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
What? Wait, what?
I'm done.
There you go.
But here it comes. Do you understand different definitions of prophecy or a prophetic office?
From what I can tell, that why you would be able to justify. Now, this is from my understanding of how I think you can justify this, or in making this claim, is that you seem to think that you have access to information or an interpretation of that information that other people don't. Right? That's what you said. You said that you can understand this. You have this special knowledge about being able to understand human behavior that other people don't.
But why? But do I have special understanding?
I don't think you fucking do.
Nope.
Well,
Every time I've ever met anybody who's called themselves
how curious
a prophet,
have you been to sit there and ask me, help me better understand what I don't understand then? Because you haven't.
So, it has nothing to do with that. What I said has to do with what you claimed. You claimed that you have this information.
No, because you're sitting there. What your implication is that I'm sitting there saying that I don't need to justify or show any type of evidence to support my beliefs. No, that's what you're asserting.
No, that's not what I said at all. No, that's not what I said at all.
So what do you think? What do you think a prophet is?
I asked you if you thought you were a prophet. You said yes,
let's define prophet.
then I explained to you why I think you would be able to justify your claim to yourself.
But
because you asked me to.
But that would
if you want to define prophet,
that would be a
please-
straw man. That would be a straw man.
No, I based it off of what you asked and what my interpretation of what you said is. I'm not straw manning you because I'm not arguing. I'm not straw manning you because I'm not arguing against my interpretation. You asked me how I interpreted it, and I answered you. I have not
and I'm telling
argued
you
against that implication because that is
make
not
it
what a
straw
straw man is.
That's not what a straw man is.
Which doesn't
But look,
matter. Which doesn't matter. What is your definition of a prophet then? Because you wanted to get to that. Please define it for us.
Somebody who reveals truth.
Okay, come on, man. Give us an ambiguous definition of what a prophet is, because that's the most ambiguous definition.
I'm on camera right now.
I'm
on camera on the internet. I guess now I'm a prophet. Like that definition is 100% fucking useless. So let's
My
not
underwear is white with blue spots.
But
I revealed you the truth.
So tell me something. So if you're a prophet, tell me something and reveal something to me that I don't understand that could help me be a better version of myself.
Wait, I got this, guys.
I keep shifting from side to side because my leg is itchy.
David, let me do
that doesn't help me, David.
Messenger, are you in the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not trying to dox you here. I'm just got a curious question. Do you know everything about law enforcement agencies in the U.S.?
No.
Okay, I can reveal things to you.
Okay.
I'm revealing things to you that you previously didn't know.
Is it common knowledge, though?
No.
No.
So you're saying law enforcement stuff about law enforcement isn't common knowledge? You didn't acquire.
There are things about law enforcement that isn't common knowledge.
What do you have with, I'm going to ask you this. What do you have an understanding of that you did not receive from another human being?
Wait, no. That's not the definition.
You added a whole other layer
on.
onto that.
Yeah. So are you saying that the knowledge that you reveal as truth is through divine revelation?
Yes.
So that's the prophet part.
Do we learn self-awareness?
So then are you saying then that your definition of prophet is somebody who reveals truth that is accessible only by divine revelation?
Something other than other human beings prior to it being there, yes.
Sorry. Can I think I know. I think I might be able to clarify this definition. So, given that Jesus charged the apostles with spreading the word, and the mythos is that a true believer will be provided, insight via the Holy Spirit. John, are you saying that in this context, all believers are to some extent prophets?
No, absolutely not. Because I think that
I understand what he's saying.
No, he's special.
No, I'm not. It's not about David. It's not about special. It's about.
It's not. You're not special.
David,
I don't think so.
Messenger. Were you sent to send a message, or were you?
It's not about him.
Are you on a mission from God to send a message to one person or a group?
Are
of
you
people,
are you a blues brother? Is what he's trying to ask. No, look, Muppets, your mic level went way down low. That's why you're not able to get in. But answer Jim's question, Messenger, and then
Muppet are speaking at the same time. Just
right. That's what I'm saying. Answer Jim's question, then we'll let Muppets get in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do believe that I have a message for humanity. I absolutely do.
What's the message?
For all of humanity, then?
David.
All of humanity. Anybody who's willing to learn and grow. Absolutely.
Okay. Did you receive this in a prophetic vision?
Yes.
And how did you receive this?
I woke up one morning in November of 2005 with an understanding of things that I didn't previously have.
Such as?
How and why we are as a human race, why we act and behave the way we do, why we make decisions and choose things, where those things originate from, and how to change and transform those things so that you can become more perfect in your nature.
Oh, come on, man. Sorry, John and I and David McGinnis.
Hang on, please. How are you applying those gifts that God has bestowed upon you in order to progress humanity according to God's will?
I share them as much as I can within the context as I can as a human being.
What are you sharing exactly? Can you give us a taste of that?
He just did. He literally just did. That's the point.
Yeah. That was it.
Did I give you an example of it? I think Jim's question's fair.
It's not.
Convinced me.
Well, I don't think it convinced you, but I think that Muppet is very skeptical about what I'm offering.
You have
I think he's very
no idea
skeptical
what
of
I'm
what you're
skeptical
offering.
about.
All right, well, check it out. Then, first of all, Muppets, your mic needs to be turned up or put back in front of your face or something that's real low. Go ahead and say what you have to say. And after you, Mr. Macabre was trying to get in.
So I'm skeptical of things, but of historical context. You keep speaking to authorities on these things, but
What authorities?
you keep speaking of historical context for authorities like the Talmud.
No, I didn't speak of that. Jim did.
You were arguing with Jim about the authority of the Talmud.
I asked Jim to provide examples within the Talmud that he couldn't do.
Yes, but unless you had an authority on such, how would you be able to compare against it?
I don't have to provide that burden.
Well,
It's on him.
Hold on. Also,
I have
wait a
him ready.
minute, and hold on. Also, to be fair, Jim, he didn't provide, but he told you where it could be found. He was just saying he couldn't pull it off the top of his head. Oh, and he did look it up. If you want, yeah, go ahead, Jim. Sorry, Mr. Macabre. We'll get to you in a minute. Go ahead, Jim. If you brought some of that up.
Sorry, I just passed. Give me 1 second. I thought we were already past this. 1 Kings 20, 39 through 40. This is borrowed straight from Aesop, actually.
You said 1 Kings 49?
Well, here's what you give him the verses. 20. Give Messenger the verses, and then while he is looking them up himself, then we'll let Mr. Macabre in. And go ahead, Jim. Finish giving him the verses.
I'll give you three passages, and then you can research them, and we can talk later if you refute them.
Sure.
1 Kings 20, verses 39 through 40. 2 Samuel chapter 14, verses 6 through 8. And 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. And when you're reading the 1 through 4, it's probably best to read the whole chapter 12. It's not very long.
What was the third one?
What's that?
The third one. What was the third one, Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 1 through 4.
And then now, Messenger, while you are looking those up,
no, he said to look at them later and follow up later with him.
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, just whenever.
Well, yeah, or if you want to browse through them now, maybe you might have a response. But anyway, go ahead, Mr. Macabre. You were trying to get in a moment ago, and I jumped on you.
I'd like to get in after him.
Okay, Dave. You're muted, Mr. Macabre.
Thanks for letting me know, John. Messenger, I just took some umbrage with your claim that you understand human psychology 100%. I mean, David McGinnis, myself, and you all have qualifications, and I think that it would be unbecoming of us to ever make that claim, given that we have first-hand knowledge that our discipline could be described as pre-paradigmatic. I mean, there is no universal theory of human behavior, and I don't think that ever make a claim to understanding it.
I have it.
I just want to say, I kind of feel like we're ganging up on Messenger. I
don't mind.
Chance to, like, if he wants to shift gears into something else, we can.
Well, two things. First off, I have a universal model for human behavior. So you can say that. I know you're skeptical, and I know you don't understand, which is fair for when you don't have the information.
No.
Hold on. Wait. To be skeptical, I would have to first think that there's some possibility that what you're saying is true.
That's not true. That has nothing to do with the definition of skepticism.
I would also like to point out, you just said skeptical and not understanding. I understand more than you might think. So please.
Obviously, as evidenced by your responses and your reactions to everything that I say, I would say that you lack a lot of things in understanding your own human behavior.
Excuse me?
I can pour some cold water over this.
Healthy human beings don't say "excuse me" when somebody makes an assertion about their character and nature.
Apparently, you've never been to the Southeast.
Yes,
so
they
fuck
do.
you.
Healthy people don't say "fuck you" either.
What?
Hey! I've seen Messenger play this game before. I've seen Messenger play this game before. Don't get into a shit flinging contest with him because he'll
lose that every time.
Welcome to the Raging Atheist.
Maybe I should be the creating raging theist.
Yeah, like the Messenger will win every shit flinging contest.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can shut this shit down real fast, because if you say you understand 100%, and then saying that, well, real people don't do this, well, a real person is doing it, you've lost.
I didn't say real. I didn't say real.
Well, that's a good point right there.
No. I never said real people don't do that. So let's not make false
People who understand.
Yeah, people who
I said-
fully
I said
understand.
healthy-
But he can already
healthy
demonstrate
people
that, so
don't behave poorly in
yeah,
that manner.
I'm short-terming what you're
Poorly.
saying because it doesn't matter.
I kept from interrupting for almost 30 minutes by raising my hand politely while doing this because you're literally saying things that aren't historically true. You keep talking with like this knowledge of the universe, but you don't actually bring up any sources. You just ask people for other sources when they bring up contentions, which is fine if a person makes an assertion. But here's the thing. You've been making assertions the entire night, and you haven't produced a single one.
What assertion do you want me to sit there and substantiate?
Trust me, this
I
ain't
want
nothing.
I want you to prove that you've been like given these prophetic visions.
I can't prove that I've been given prophetic
It's
visions.
unfalse.
Then
Yeah, it's
Because
unfalse.
nobody-
So, if,
No,
well,
no.
hold on. If you have I want to get in here now because I was waiting for Macabre and I want to talk to this guy for a second.
Listen,
Look,
you guys have
No.
interrupted Muppet Guy so many times. Let the guy
Yeah.
speak.
I said what I want to say, but I
Yeah,
just
Muppets was done.
Yeah, Muppets was done.
I will say this one last time, really quick before David gets into this. Just out of curiosity, you talked about people like in this chat who, of course, had to be previous Christians and not understood it. But I'm just being hyperbolic there. Just out of curiosity, did you grow up a Christian?
I would say yes.
You would say yes? It's a yes or no question.
Because when you say grow up, I would say the earliest recollection that I have, between the Baptist and Methodist stuff around kindergarten, first grade, I would say,
Okay.
at least from that point, I remember being
So
integrated.
this is the first time I'm actually breaking down a question, so just give me a second to lead.
I thought you were done.
I'm not done.
He has
He was
revoked
done.
his
Now he's
done.
gone. He was
See,
done.
that's
Now
my
he's gone
point:
on
is
to
give the
something
man
else.
time to speak and give
Yeah.
some chance for he and I to have back and forth dialogue.
The question I have for you next is, so where do you get your biblical context?
What when you say where do I get my biblical context?
Yes.
Well, originally, before I deconverted from mainstream modern day Christianity, currently from my understanding of human behavior in reading the scripture from that predisposition.
So when would you say that began?
November 2005.
2005. Okay.
Do you have an understanding of human behavior in the first century in southern Judea?
Jim,
Hold on, Jim.
Stop. This is important. So if something else were to appear right now, like the Dead Sea Scrolls did, would that change your mind?
Can you give a little bit more understanding so I can understand what you're trying to make a point about?
What I'm trying to make a point about is,
Okay.
You're talking about 2005 being the date where you get your historical context for the Bible.
From Revelation.
No, it wasn't a historical context. It was a framework for understanding everything.
And you're claiming that was a revelation, right? You were given revelation from God, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
So
all right.
Well, I mean, if you want to call it God, supreme being, creator,
That
alien,
doesn't
whatever,
matter.
that
That doesn't matter.
that doesn't matter.
Okay.
Go ahead, Muppets. Hold on, Dave. Hold on. Go ahead, Muppets. Finish
So
up.
that doesn't technically matter in this case. What I'm talking about is something like, say we were to find something written by John that disagrees with what you say right now. I understand what you're saying earlier was that they could be flawed. The Bible, as we understand it, can be flawed.
the Bible is flawed.
That's not important to the conversation.
Okay.
Just injecting that. I understand that you think it's flawed, but here's the point I'm trying to make. What makes you different than every other biblical scholar out there? Atheist, non-atheist, Islam, anything.
What makes me different? I have and can teach any human being how to be free from stress, anxiety, anger, resentment, depression, any of those things that most people struggle with. Because I have any human being.
Okay, I can actually empirically prove that you're incorrect.
Go ahead.
Teach me. I want you to teach me in a long-term format. I will listen to everything you have to say, and I guarantee that you will be incorrect.
Okay. And if you make time for this, and I will make time for you, and I am correct that I gave you revelation and insight to your own being that transformed yourself to become a healthier and better version of yourself, then you get to come on these forums and say, what I provided to you was something outside of what we currently have in mainstream psychology and counseling. Fair enough.
Hold on, I got a
Yeah,
contention to that.
Well, no, hold on.
Yeah,
No,
hold
let
on,
me-
wait,
let me
wait,
finish this
stop.
conversation
Wait.
with him.
I know, but wait, hold on. I got to get in here real quick. Cheshire. So there's somebody else that wants in that you know and can vouch for?
No, I know that people are messaging me to ask you if they can come in.
Oh, okay, but you don't
Yeah.
know who. All right, I was going to say you could send him. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. Muppets.
I
was gonna say-
understand. I'm just understand. I'm going longer. Go ahead and Cheshire, say what you
Yeah,
want to say, and
Cheshire,
I'll
yeah,
respond.
Cheshire wants to get in.
Yeah,
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say that there's a little bit of an issue with your proposed ending, because the thing is that the other step to this is that what you're saying is divine. So there has to be, you can't just say that, oh, you were able to provide him with some insight. It has to be, it can't just be that, oh, well, you managed to say something
It'll
like,
be
keep
something
your
that he
room
can't-
clean.
it'll
But
be
how did
something that he
that's not
can't-
divine. That's not something he can't, something he can't get somewhere else. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what I will provide to Muppet Dude, and I'm sorry, I'm not being rude when I say Muppet Dude, but that's just my vocabulary. What I provide to Muppet Dude, he will not be able to get from any other source on this planet.
I
Fair
will.
enough?
Okay,
Is that
how is
fair?
it that the revelationary power of God is on par with modern psychology? Why is it not over it? Like, why are you not better than modern psychologists, given that you have this divine revelation?
I am better than them.
So you think. But
you,
here's the
you
thing.
just said that you provide a service that is on par with modern
I
psychology.
never said it was on par
No,
with
no,
them.
he never said it's
Okay.
on par. He said it's better.
Okay, it's better. Okay,
Oh, it's
I
better.
really want to jump in now. I've been waiting, and
bet you
I
all
got
do.
stepped on a bunch of times. So
Objectively better.
here's the thing: the messenger, Mr. Messenger, whatever we want to call you. Okay.
Sure.
I've had a background before getting into psychology and things in magic, right? And anytime I've ever seen somebody claim themselves to be a prophet, they've either been straight cons, looking to take advantage of people, incredibly narcissistic, or mentally ill. Those are usually the options. Now, I've yet to run into anybody who's been able to demonstrate a single conclusive or even remotely convincing demonstration that I should give them any title like prophet, except for maybe under some loose definition like the bullshit you tried to drop earlier. Now,
Hey, John. I can vouch for Godless. I know who she is.
I'm already taking care of it, Jim. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
I was just saying. Okay.
yeah.
No,
Cool.
well, then when I looked in chat, I saw she had a wrench too, so that pretty much vouches for her. So go ahead, folks.
So here's the thing. First, you made a claim that you woke up one morning with some divine knowledge or some kind of something changed, right? Are you familiar with Jason Paget?
No.
Paget, I think is no. So he's a guy. He was attacked in a bar, did a bit of damage, woke up suddenly. Math genius, one of the top math geniuses in the world. He didn't know math at all, didn't understand it, didn't know calculus, didn't know any of it, could keep up with the top math people in the world because suddenly he could see shapes and geometry and shit everywhere. This is not uncommon, okay? So the idea that maybe you had a shift for whatever reason where you woke up and felt differently, that's not fucking convincing to me because that happens and it's demonstrated to happen and it happens for a number of different reasons. Number two, you claim to have an absolutely perfect model of human behavior. When you look at human behavior, does that include persuasion?
Sure.
Then why are you so fucking bad at convincing people if you have a perfect model?
Who said I was attempting to persuade anybody?
If you're a prophet, do you think that you're obligated to, or that there's some sort of a divine command for you to save people and give them
No.
the truth in some manner?
Not
No?
if he doesn't believe in the actual literal Bible.
Well, number one, I'm not an evangelist, so I'm not here to sit there and save your soul.
That's not what that's about. I just want to point that out.
Evangelism 100% is about people who
No,
go
no, no.
out and try
No, no,
to create proselytes.
Yes, if they're, I'm talking about the actual biblical verse, which I was referring to David, because I said if you don't believe in the actual literal Bible, then you're not under obligation to do so.
Well, even a prophet wouldn't be obligated to be an evangelist.
You're true. That's correct. He's just required to talk about it. He's not required to save other people's soul.
Well, he's there to sit there and build the body up, not go out and win people to the body.
Well, and if we look at other prophets, they provide original content.
They did.
What original content are you providing?
Human behavior. A deep insight into human behavior that you don't already understand.
Jesus didn't have that?
Of course he did.
Did he not teach that?
He did, but many people didn't get it because what he taught they didn't understand.
No, that was the messianic secret. That's what they didn't understand.
No, it wasn't about a messianic secret, because now you're getting into basically Pauline teachings that were false.
I agree. Many of the Pauline teachings were false.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Like all of them.
But you're using it as a point of sitting there refuting me of something you don't even believe in.
Okay, who is this new
Right,
person?
I'm operating within your framework.
No, you're operating from a Christian framework and you're trying to apply it to me. You can't win that. You can't lump me in with mainstream modern day Christianity and expect to be able to have a good conversation. You have to be curious about what is it that I really hold to be true, and then go from there. And that's what's lacking, I believe, from some of you.
So let me ask you this then. Even though you're not attempting to persuade anyone right now, right? But you do have a perfect understanding of human behavior. So convince me, persuade me right now. With your perfect understanding, you should be able to know exactly what needs to be said, exactly what needs to, read my body language, do whatever it is that you need to do to tell me what it is so I can understand what it is that you think you know. Go ahead.
I will make time to do that if there's no interruptions for the next few minutes. Is that
fair?
fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But so
Yes.
can I just jump in one thing before we start doing that? Because I'm totally 100%. I'll go on mute and everything.
Okay.
I just want to jump in and say one thing here. This guy thinks he's a fucking prophet. That is all.
I'm here. So when you say this guy, at least address me directly.
Well, and here's the thing, though, and before you take your few minutes, I do want to point out, too, Muppets asked you earlier, your claim that you are a prophet, your claim that you were given revelation on a date that you named back in, was it 2012? Back in 2005, that is an unfalsifiable proposition. I mean, so you can
I'm just
claim
going to
that,
play Tetris.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to claim something like that, that the only thing we can do is take you at your word, and that's hard for us to do and with that claim.
I'm not asking you to take my word for what happened in that day or where I believe it came from, because for all I know, I'm just really this fucking really smart genius who took all this, understanding of psychology, and based on those things, just like Einstein with his general understanding of physics, came up with the theory of relativity by himself without any other help from any other human being.
Think you're Einstein, but about psychology.
No, I don't think I'm Einstein. I'm just drawing a correlation between the two.
All right.
So you're drawing a correlation between yourself and Einstein and being able to
hold. Everybody hold. We were going to give Messenger. We're going to give Messenger. You said you needed several minutes. Is 3 minutes enough? Do you want?
No, I'm saying if David is truly being authentic,
I am.
No.
Right.
I'm just premising this for John. I said, if David's being truly, authentic in terms of saying, "Hey, convince me," and he and I are going to have this dialogue, then let the dialogue happen without outside interference.
So let me see. Hold on. So let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're not saying you want to take 5 minutes to explain something to us. You want a few minutes to have a back and forth with David.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we should do it. I think we should actually, some of us should drop out and let them do it. I'll volunteer.
Well, we don't even have to drop out. I mean, but just everybody mute except for David.
I don't trust myself.
I know Messenger well. All right, so this is going to take a while.
Yeah.
This is kind of dulled down from his offer to Shannon Q that it needs to be one-on-one sessions. So I mean, Messenger, is this going to be brief, or is everybody going to be able to? I've been silent because I get you all the time, and I love you, dog. I do, but.
Sure.
Is this going to be brief, or you're not going to convince David? You know this, so.
Well, but I mean,
if he has a correct understanding of human psychology, that should not be an issue. It should not be an issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to grant him that he has the perfect understanding, and I'm going to walk away from this convinced. Right?
So
let's do it. I want to be convinced.
Okay. And so, Messenger, how long do you think this process will take, just so everybody else knows?
There's no way to put a time frame on it, but we can limit it. I'm saying there's no way to sit there and put a time frame on David and I's dialogue, because I have no idea how he's going to respond to anything that I say.
Right. Well, so I mean, so basically, it could take 10 minutes. It could take 50. I mean, you're just all right. Well, then this is what we'll do: is everybody seems to be willing to let this happen. Everybody else mute besides Messenger and David, and for at least the next 10 minutes we'll give them, and let's see if Messenger can convince David or convince any of us, and then we can all jump back in. My apologies to the two folks that just joined us, but you're going to have to kind of hold your peace for, we'll say, at least the next 10 minutes, or if they get done quicker than that, then fine. So go ahead, Messenger. I'm going to mute myself as well. David and Messenger, take it away.
David, what's up, brother?
How you doing, man? Sorry to come off so contentious with you. I just, for the camera.
I don't have an issue with that. You are operating from your unique understanding and your unique experiences and understanding of this world. You can't do anything different. So just to give you a background, I have a very unconditional, empathetic, and forgiving and understanding viewpoint towards all human beings, even if I'm being harsh with them in the times that I am. I'm not being harsh to be cruel. I'm not being harsh to sit there and make fun of somebody or belittle somebody or put somebody under my thumb. I come against people who make assertions that are detrimental to their own well-being.
Okay.
So in regard to that, usually when anytime I faced people, and I was a therapist at one time, and I used to work with clients for a number of months, and you
only worked with clients for a number of months.
I left the field after a year of serving as a therapist.
Can I ask you why? Because I also right now, I'm currently not seeing clients for some of my own reasons, but I did it for a number of years. So go ahead. Like, what was your reason? What was your motivation? I'm curious.
Because the behavioral health system was broke. They were the place that I was working. I had to sit there and acquire X amount of hours to be able to apply for my full licensure, which was 3,200 hours in my state.
Yeah, some of the mental health systems broken in many places. To be fair, what school of thought were you like? What was your treatment modality? I'm curious. Like, were you like a cognitive behavioral psychology guy? Were you like, tell me your problem and we'll find out the root of the problem and then it will magically disappear? What's your?
Sound like Freud, but you're talking to like Ellis.
Sorry, mixed metaphor.
Because you have that German Slavic going. Okay, anyways, in regard to, I would say the closest thing to psychology or clinical counseling would be CBT. But my understanding of that is far more in depth and didn't have the criticisms that CBT does. So when I had a CBT is cognitive behavior therapy for those
for those who don't know.
No, I'm just for the audience.
It's also similar to NLP, really, which is neuro-linguistic programming. There's some some differences.
Which is pseudopsychology, and I'll blast NLP out of the water. I hate it. So anyway,
it mirrors much of cognitive behavioral therapy. But they're
pseudoscience. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back on to me and you. Okay, so from my understanding of worldview, if I ask this question, and if you've been a therapist, and I don't know your education background or what you've did, so I'm just going based on what you just said 2 seconds ago.
Yeah,
you understand what having a client in terms of resistance is like, in terms of somebody who really doesn't want to be there but is there because of either a spouse wants them there, a parent wants them there, the justice system wants them there.
Yeah. They're not there because they want to change. They're there because they have to be there.
And to some degree, I kind of get that from you. And I'm being transparent with you because I can. This is a unique thing between me and you. One of the things I ask is, if I ask this question, answer it. How do you know what you don't know?
I can only stand to assume that there's much that I don't know. I can't assume that I know what that is, obviously. You can't know what you don't know.
So it's only answerable one way, which is nobody can know what they don't know.
Sure.
And that goes for me too.
Yeah. Okay.
Human beings, by and large, are a unique collection of their prior knowledge, experiences that they had, and the information that's provided to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Would you say that applies to you as well as a human being, that you are a unique collection of the knowledge, information, experiences, genetics that were given to you?
Yep. Yeah, I'll grant all that. That's fine.
Okay, and then just for me to better understand you, do you hold to a free will type of viewpoint, or are you more into deterministic point of view as far as your own viewpoint on yourself?
I just like to point out that that's not a dichotomy.
Yeah, it's not really a dichotomy, and it's more complicated than that.
We're talking about John Peterson.
Yeah. So, hold on, Muppets.
No,
I love you, brother. But hold on.
You have an inability to sit there and hold your tongue. I completely understand.
It's okay, man. Just let me go through these things. So I just want to respond to one thing that you said. You think that I'm not here to change. Here I'll tell you fundamentally. Right?
That John Peterson did. I said there's some resistance.
There's some resistance. Okay. Well, what I'm not resistant to is truth, right? I kind of hold to the Matt Dillahunty thing, and like I'd like to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. So if you have some sort of truth that's demonstrable, then I'd be open to that. As far as your free will question, I think that's complicated because there's I think that if you look at life as an overall trajectory, I think that yes, our actions and things, we sort of can steer the ship to an extent, but also some of our behaviors, some of the things that we do, our brain has decided to do before we're even consciously aware that that's happened, right? And that can be measured. So so I don't know that free will is not something that. So as an example, I think if somebody has, say, a habit, their brain has decided to, latch onto a thing, and they want to stop doing whatever that thing is, and they keep falling back into it. Their brain has sort of decided to do. I don't think that they have sort of free will to not have fallen back in, but I do think that they have the sort of will to sort of set the goal to change that sort of programmed response, if you will, over time. And there's various ways to do that, some successfully, some unsuccessfully, right? But generally speaking, moment to moment, less so in a way. But overall, I think you could say that there's sort of some semblance of something I would be willing to define as free will.
Right, but do you believe that you think that you operate, or any of the actions and behaviors or choices, decisions that you make operate from independently functioning despite your prior experiences and information?
Independent of the prior experiences and information?
Because that would be the true definition of libertarian free will, which is that even despite your experiences that you've been through, the information that's been provided to you, the things that you hold to be true in your genetic makeup, you can make choices independent of those things. That's what free will is all about.
So my answer to that is this. And it's going to be a kind of a weird analogy, but you know how sometimes you listen to like really modern music and people are like, it's too clean, it's too whatever. And then you listen to something like on an old vinyl and they're like, that sounds real good. And it's part of that, like, the record's got some imperfections. It's got maybe a little bit of hiss. It's got whatever. And it just adds that richness to it. I think that's kind of what brains are like, right? Compared to computers. Computers are very clean. Brains are kind of messy. There's some fuzzy stuff going on, right? And I think that this... I'm not sure. We'll call it just the brain's constantly doing things. It's rebuilding itself. You have all kinds of electrical impulses. Sometimes wires get crossed. Sometimes people maybe do drugs, right? Sometimes they're influenced by their health. These are outside factors, right? Like you're going to make different decisions when you have the flu that are different than maybe what you would do on a day-to-day thing based on your experiences, or if you get some new, things change. So when you say that it's always based on past experiences, you're kind of excluding the fact that we're in our current experience right now, and there's some degree of randomness that's going on within the brain. So I think that people can do things that would be uncharacteristic of their previous experiences and purely based on that sort of fuzziness, like something has just shifted. There's, somebody's having a weird time, weird whatever, or just physical things in the brain, and I think that's part of where creativity comes from, right? Like otherwise everything would be very boring.
Well, I mean, part of creativity comes from genetic makeup, not just based on knowledge and experiences.
Granted, we don't need to dive too deep into that.
There's certain personality types and certain people that have a disposition genetically towards having an artistic mindset.
May I say something real quick? And I could be wrong, so please tell me if I am. But we've been 7 minutes into this now. All I'm hearing is two psychologists go back and forth about psychology. Where's the part you're going to convince David? I thought you were going to convince David of.
Well, here's the thing.
He's trying to lay groundwork, so give him that chance.
If you don't have that opportunity to sit there, if I don't understand where David's at, I have zero opportunity to help David. Okay. All right. That would be like David sitting there calling for a rescue and say, dude, come rescue me. And then I'm
where are you at?
I don't know if he's in the forest, if he's in the ocean, if he's in a flood. So
I prefaced what I said by saying I could be wrong. So okay, I'm with you. But just bear in mind, there's a lot of other people in the room. But go ahead and take what you need to take. Let's go. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. So basically, like you mentioned randomness, and is it fair to sit there and say that randomness could be things that you just don't understand about your own being, your own internal being that dictates action, behavior, choice, and decision? That you call it randomness, but there's really things that I could point out and say, here are those distinct determinants.
I think those things are separate. There's definitely things that people are sort of not consciously aware of, different complex interactions with, maybe past memories, how they've internalized certain narratives, all that kind of stuff. That's separate from what I'm saying is random.
What could be random in your inner being that can't be shown to you in terms of a blueprint that would outline those inner determinants that you're unaware of?
Well, when I'm using random, again, and this is the reason that I used sound, right? Like if you look at static, it'll sound random, right? Like it's usually complex and non-repeating enough that it seems random.
You made that point about vinyl. That comes from an experiential trigger.
Yes, it does.
Because you're sitting there saying that, hey, when I listen to vinyl, it gives me a feeling for the music, but that would have to dictate that vinyl was listened to in some past experience that was pleasurable to that individual. And because of that, when they hear it on cassette, 100%.
Not necessarily.
But okay, if you're saying not necessarily, you have to provide a framework for where that would be different, and you can't. You're just calling it randomness.
No, I'm saying that that's part of maybe what adds to it, right? But the difference is you can have somebody who has no past experience with vinyl who starts listening to vinyl and thinks it sounds better. There's nothing to prevent that. They don't need to have grown up with vinyl, so it's some nostalgia thing. That's not the case.
But you don't have an example of that. You're just making an assertion, and then we come out.
No, I know young people who did not grow up on vinyl, and they're obsessed with it now because they think it sounds better for whatever reason.
Okay, they think it sounds better, or was there a community that told them that it was better, and then that could have been that cognitive interference rather than an experiential?
No, I'll grant you that. It could be.
So I'm saying that. So my point is as I can sit there and tie everything to a biological process, a cognitive process, an experiential one, or an emotional. So
well, you can hypothesize that you can, but until you can demonstrate that
I can demonstrate it, because I could sit there, if I explored long enough with a human being, we can get to a biological, cognitive, experiential, or emotional understanding for what's dictating action, behavior, choice, and decision in their own framework. So my assertion is this: if you're struggling with things like anger or frustration or stress or anxiety or depression, if those things are going on with your inner being, there's something within your inner being that has been interfered with cognitively, biologically, or experiential in your past, and that you don't have a framework for reorienting those perceptions or understanding of those things to heal and grow from those things.
Sure, but I understand that. I mean,
and then let's go into the free will. Like if I want to sit there and talk about free will and really get down to why free will doesn't exist and prove it, you didn't choose who your parents were.
So what does
let me get into this real quick.
Yeah.
So just go through this method of answering questions, just because I want to hear how you respond to them. Did you choose who your parents were?
No.
Okay, they gave you your genetic makeup for what your DNA is, correct? And for what your genetic traits are within you.
As far as I know, I'm not convinced it wasn't the milkman, but you
didn't choose what area of the country you grew up in. You didn't choose what schools you went to and what teachers you had, and all those experiential and informational points that programmed you for your morals, ethics, and values that you are. So when people sit there and believe that they can free will independently choose things, everything that you were as an adolescent and a child and a toddler built upon itself. You were programmed in a certain way to speak this way, use this language, and then you had your mirror neurons that interacted and picked up behavioral mannerisms from the people you associated with throughout your education system. Then when you were an adult, you were told you had the ability to make choices for your life independent of those authority figures, but you still had a framework for internal genetics, experiential things, cognitive things that have happened that you draw correlations to. So when you receive new information through your senses, your taste, touch, smell, hearing, and sight, you interpret those things according to all those prior predispositions that were programmed and given to you. So my contention is this: every human being on this planet is always doing the best they can in a specific given moment based on those predispositions for genetic, biological, cognitive, experiential moments. And that's just how they do life. That's how they function.
So I agree with you 100%. And this is why I think that the proposition of religion is such nonsense, because we can see that people have been over time moved in a direction to believe in this thing. We know how cognitive biases form. I'm going to grant you that, I'm not going to treat you like an idiot, right? People can form cognitive biases. You know that superstitions can form out of certain things because, we're mammals, right? We have these flaws. And we know that if somebody forms a superstition and then they have a kid, that can be passed on, even though it was a bad idea to begin with, because their kid is then going to be exposed to that. So we know that these things happen. And I think that adequately describes religion on its own without any need for any supernatural. And without any need for any supernatural, you have no source for your apparent external knowledge that you're claiming prophetic status for. So I don't understand where you're going, because what you're saying, as far as I can tell, really supports the fact that there should be no religions, because they're so adequate. And in fact, what we would expect to see if there were religions, if what we would expect to see is lots of different variations of religion, depending on where they developed and what part of the world and what the circumstances and weather was and all that kind of stuff. And what do we see? Exactly that, because there's absolutely no reason to suspect that a supernatural is involved.
Okay, David, hold on a second now. So I'm taking you down this path of psychology, which you agree 100% with. And then I
said I more or less agree with what everything that you said.
I might
quibble over a few things.
I don't think you disagreed.
Yeah, I maybe quibble about some terms, but
okay. What? So to get back to this, in demonstrating this in your own framework, you think that I'm going to take this truth about human behavior and change your belief that a deity exists and that you were created. So in this, you think that my whole angle in this entire conversation was about proving the existence of God and that Jesus was indeed the Son of God that came down to sit there and save mankind from their sins. That was never my intention. Just so
no. I asked if you could prove that you were a prophet.
Okay, so in terms of
let me ask you really quick. Is that the core of your prophecy? Is that the message that was revealed to you, the truth of Jesus? Because a lot of people have made that claim, my friend.
But here's the thing in terms of where I draw that correlation. Jesus parables, and especially starting from the parable of the sower, for which most people don't understand, or what his true gospel was. His true gospel was not, I'm going to die and atone for your sins. You understand that's what mainstream modern day Christianity holds to, correct? The truth is, he came to sit there and talk about a transformation of inner being and how to authentically do that. How do you rid yourself from anxiety, stress, depression, anger, bitterness, resentment, all the things within your existence or state of being or state of feeling that interfere with your well-being as a human being on this planet?
By a continued effort at self-awareness to whatever, and using various tools at the disposal that have been learned over time, depending on what the issue is, to overcome those challenges. I mean, like the same way that every other fucking human being does.
You're a therapist that went to school. Okay.
Yes.
You went to school and you have an education level that I'm not even going to challenge or explore yet, because I don't think it matters. I think you speak articulately enough.
Yeah. So I don't get into that anyway. I won't.
But even within that framework of education,
mm-hmm.
you're still struggling with some of those things. So based on that intense and hard education process that you went through, and you operated as a therapist or an authority figure for a human being, helping people cope and deal with what they did.
Yep.
You as a human being can't help somebody overcome something you haven't overcome yourself.
Not true.
You can.
Absolutely.
So how can you help a human being overcome something that you have an ability to overcome yourself?
Are you telling? Well, I'll give you an example. I know I have a pretty good buddy of mine that's got some pretty serious anger issues, right? And they've never gotten over those. But I've also seen them talk somebody down who was having anger issues and help them get over theirs.
Okay.
Right.
To me, I would say that's not helping somebody get over their anger issues, because getting over anger issues is not helping somebody cope with a problem when they're feeling angry. Dealing with anger issues is helping somebody never feel anger in non-life-threatening situations. And
why is that useful?
because intense emotions are only valuable in life-threatening situations.
Don't agree. Hard disagree.
Okay, don't agree.
Intense emotions are the spice of life, my friend. You need to have those, otherwise everything would be boring and bland. Fuck that.
Spice of life. So
Sure.
the things like anger and anxiety and depression are the spice of life for you.
I said intense emotions. There's other intense emotions too, right?
Like
there's
what?
also joy. There's also sadness, but you also lack the ability.
I'm talking about things like anxiety, stress, depression, anger. Those things do not create spice of life in non-life threatening situations.
No, but they certainly add variety, and sometimes the
adding variety.
Sometimes no. Hold on. What I'm saying is,
jump in here really quick?
Sometimes people will gain more from triumphing over something, right? Like if you have never known, like you kind of need to know what sadness is, and you kind of need to know what anger is, and to understand sort of the other emotional states too, right? Like there has to be contrast to compare against.
Real quick, John. Just real quick, John. Let me get in here. Just hang on, Athena. We're going to get everybody else in here. I'm going to let this go a couple more minutes, and then we got to start letting some of these people get back in.
I'm thus far thoroughly unconvinced. I'm not even.
I mean, and this is difficult because, I think what we can do is in a future stream, we'll get a more compact group in here, like maybe you, Dave, and Jim, and Messenger, and and maybe Raging, just like 4 people. But I feel bad because I want to get some of these other people in. So yeah, so would just take like 2 more minutes, and the 2 of you kind of wrap this up. And I know that Godless has been messaging in the live chat. She would like to ask you a few questions, and Kyle joined us over 10 minutes ago and hasn't been able to speak yet. So go ahead, fellas. Messenger and Dave, you want to wrap?
He knows. Yeah. If he's going to respond, I think he was waiting to see if I had anything to say.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if you had anything else, because I mean,
now when you're unconvinced, what are you unconvinced about? Are you unconvinced that I am a prophet, or are you unconvinced that I have some understanding, revelation about human behavior that you don't understand yet?
I'm unconvinced of both of those claims.
Okay. My assertion is I can help you be free from stress, anxiety, depression, anger, and not need those things other than in life-threatening situations where they're useful. You're contending and holding on to normalizing something that wasn't intended for those purposes. Anger does not serve. Do you want to know why that intense emotions in non-life-threatening situations are useless? Here's why. Because we know that when intense emotions arrive, it impairs your cognitive ability. It blocks off access to your prefrontal cortex.
Yes, I understand that.
So where all your thinking and reasoning and right doing occur, which means that domestic violence only occurs because people are angry in non-life-threatening situations. Do you realize that?
Domestic violence is a life-threatening situation.
No, domestic violence only occurs, which means the assailant, not the victim, only occurs in intense, non-life-threatening situations.
Does not mean they're having an extreme emotion. Sometimes people are just psychopaths as well. It's a control game.
The extreme emotions.
You can have people who are very unemotional who are also abusive. So I don't get your.
You sit there and say that there's unemotional people that are very abusive. You're absolutely wrong, because what you're sitting there drawing an assertion for is people who repress and sit there and put on a poker face more so than that those things are really going on internally. Healthy human beings who have a healthy cognitive perspective of self and others don't harm others. Don't have a desire to harm others.
I'm sorry. I mean, I like just look at the sociopathy or psychopathy, right? I mean, there's different deviations, right? And it comes down to genetics and brain chemistry and whatnot. And which is partly why I agreed a little bit with what you were saying.
I've studied extensively the criminal mind in my research programs.
Okay, but so here's the thing, though. You're still claiming a divine source for this information. Nothing that you've said, but nothing. So here, but hold on. Nothing that you've said sounds incredibly unique to me. I'm going to open the floor back up to people after I comment. Nothing you've said sounds incredibly unique. It sounds a bit pop psychology. It's not all that convincing. I don't doubt that probably you have some skills in your tool case to help people cope with maybe some anxiety and thing. That's not incredibly unique either. There's lots of good therapists who are able to do that. I doubt that you have 100% success rate, and it sounds like you only actually work with people for a few months, so we don't have any real good metrics to see how good you are at what you claim to be able to do. But the reality is this, is even if you were extremely good at being able to get people to let go of anger and anxiety and whatever the fuck, that does nothing to prove that you've gained that ability through some divine revelation, because there's been plenty of people throughout the years who are incredibly good at their craft, whatever that craft is, through genetics, through whatever reason, they're a savant or whatever. It doesn't require divine revelation. I'm sorry, it doesn't require any of that.
There's 2 points, and I'm going to respond to you, and then we'll open it back up to the floor. So allow me to respond. Number one, I wasn't given any type of pop psychology. The information that I had and the ability to provide it in my own life as well as to others occurred before I ever entered into a psychology or clinical counseling program. So I didn't extrapolate it or learn it from those things. I put it to the test in those programs. As far as being able to help people out, I wasn't in the field as a therapist for a few months. I was in the field for almost a year. So it wasn't just a few months, and it wasn't just
almost a year. It wasn't. We didn't define what few is. So.
No. Few is like 2 or 3. So, anyways, getting into it,
two is a couple. 2 is a couple.
Few is 3 or more, and it's
3 or more. Yeah. So if you were less than 12,
if we said over 100 people, we wouldn't say that's a few. So, anyways, that's just professionally. I'm not even
but months we were less than 12.
You're not even talking about personally. So you're making assertions about things that you don't understand to sit there and substantiate your own point. That's unfair, and you know it. So to get into understanding this psychology, again, we haven't spent enough time for me to help you understand what you still don't understand about your own self that could help perfect your own self for the things that you still struggle with, because we haven't even explored what in life you still struggle with. And I don't want to do that in a public forum. I would not want to do that because I don't think that that would be beneficial to even you.
All right. Well, look, check it out. Let me direct some traffic here. And first, let me say, too, to the messenger reveals, this was not planned. I mean, the messenger reveals versus the world was not planned. Okay. I have like 3 topics here on my notepad that I planned on bringing up, but I know other people probably had thought of some topics because I sent the word out to them ahead of this. But I just want to say, you know, I commend you for taking everybody on. Yeah. Yes, Mr. McCobb.
I was going to say, we never really got into any depth regarding Norris the Nefarious Narwhal. I'd like to get to that today.
I'm going to shut up for a while.
I think it's a game changer for their channel.
Well, look, check it out. I've already scheduled an entire hangout for that in the future, so I promise you we'll get to it. First, I want Godless to get in here, and I want to get everybody back in here a little bit. You guys have all been waiting patiently, but first we're going to let Godless get in for a few minutes, and then I want to go to Puffalopagus, Kyle. So go ahead, Godless.
I was saying in the live chat for a long time I wanted to come in and defend the theist. I'm an atheist, but I like playing devil's advocate. And he started claiming he was a prophet, though. But so I just have a comment. He's the messenger. David we were arguing about free will for like 10, 15 minutes. And then it seemed as if David conceded and he like convinced him that free will doesn't exist. That seemed to be a pretty uncanny supernatural ability.
No.
He was just granting the premise.
I said I granted the premise, and I said I would grant that under certain circumstances there are things that I would accept calling free will, but ultimately I think if you get down to it, it's more or less deterministic. We just can't measure everything. But like that's I pointed out I would you know, if people say you know, I reached over and grabbed a cup, right? I said, you know, do I have, you know, can we call that free will? Like, I'll grant that colloquially, but like ultimately there's more going on, right? It's more complicated than that.
Well, I mean, I could debate that because it doesn't really matter if it's determined or random, right? Free will would be incompatible with both. I mean, if it's uncaused, if your action is uncaused, then you're not the cause. So in what sense would you
right? So what I'm talking about too is also like influences from so if you were to relive, like if we turned back the clock and relived a certain day, the chances are you would do exactly the same things, exactly the same way, unless there's outside intervention.
It's irrelevant.
Right?
Either way, every event is either caused or uncaused. It doesn't matter if the universe is completely deterministic or not. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, events are either caused or uncaused.
Yeah,
sure. I
including
don't understand. I don't understand
every
your point,
event is either caused or uncaused, including your actions. So if it's caused, you couldn't have done otherwise, and if it's uncaused, then you are not the cause.
Yeah, I didn't say that you could necessarily do otherwise, but I don't necessarily think that means that I chuck out the term free.
Look,
free will is a fuzzy term. I don't even really like the term.
In the case of a free will act, would your action be caused or uncaused?
In the case of what? Sorry.
A free will action. You think that there's free will actions? Would it be caused or uncaused?
No, it's still caused. I said there's certain things
well,
that I
would
would
grant.
Then
you couldn't have done otherwise. So it's not like you chose to do it, because choice implies that there's more than one option.
Yeah, so let's say we look at somebody who has committed a premeditated murder. We don't look at that person and say, well, they didn't have any other choice because determinism, so clearly there should be no consequence, right? Even though
our justice system's built on theistic free will.
Yeah, and we do that for pragmatic reasons. I don't see how that's relevant.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm. So what I'm saying
our
is
society
within
has
those
the wrong view of free will, therefore free will exists.
No, I didn't say it exists. I never said that.
Okay,
once
so you're not responding to what I said.
To which thing?
I said if it's caused, and if then you couldn't have done otherwise. So there's no choice, because choice implies that there's more than one option, and you start talking about deterring people by locking them up, which is totally irrelevant.
Not really, but so rather than I'd be glad to talk to you about this, but rather than monopolize the rest, because I already went for a while, rather than monopolize the rest of the time and getting into a deep discussion about the definition of free will, because I said I'd grant it as something under some definition, maybe, and it really depends on what's presented. If I would say, okay, if that's what you want to call free will, fine. But ultimately, no, I don't accept that there's a free will or there's some ethereal magical choice thing that you can do that's separate from the physical world. So, I mean, if that's what you're challenging, it's not what I intended to communicate.
And my assertion will be this: if there's people out there that hold to deterministic values, you don't do this life very well, as evidenced by how you overreact to theists and hateful people.
Okay, Kyle, you've been waiting a long time. Was there anything you wanted to get in and say?
Oh, you talking about me?
Yes, Puffalophagus, right?
Yeah, the big beard. So anyway, I don't have any of the college education or field-specific knowledge that these two guys have, especially David McGinnis, because I've had many conversations with him, and he doesn't bandy about and fuck around. He can fill you out, but he's not gonna try to blow smoke up your ass. The thing that I have a problem with is that messenger. I'm from Las Vegas. I've probably met in my life about 10,000 guys like you, right? And there's one difference between them and you that I see here, and that's intellectual honesty. Because they might bullshit their customer, they might bullshit the gambler, the high roller, whatever, but when you sit down with them at the bar next to them and you're not their customer, they're not going to bullshit you, right? They're street magicians, they're gambling, clairvoyants, whatever they want to call themselves, right? This happens, right? But the difference is that they are honest. That they say, look, I learned this skill, I figured out how to read people, and I can use.
We lost you.
At what point in time, what happened that you decide to bullshit? And that's one of my questions, because I've seen different skeptics, different people that predict stuff, right? And I even have talked to a magician that used to stop by the bar on his way home, and he would just, kind of read people or whatever, give them little like predictions, and he would pay for his beers, you know, his drinks after work or whatever, right? Well, one day he stopped by the bar and he basically told a guy, he's a big drinking guy, he's a biker, angry dude, all this stuff, right? And he just kind of told him, hey, you know, the guy was like, I want to pay for a prediction, right? And he's like, yeah, here's my prediction. You're going to, you know, something bad's going to happen on your motorcycle, right? The guy left the bar that night on his motorcycle and ended up getting into an accident and died, right? And everybody thought this guy was like a, you know, they were like, oh, you're psychic, you're psychic, you're psychic. And finally he had to break down and be like, look, I'm not. That guy comes in here every day. He's angry. I see what's going on. He drinks all the time. He leaves drunk on his bike. I knew that something like that was going to happen. So that's why I threw that out there. But now I have to stop doing this because it makes it look like I'm clairvoyant.
Well, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something, Puff, to clarify. Are you claiming that Messenger is a con artist here, that he's being disingenuous?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to bandy about and be as careful with my words as.
That's why I asked. That's why I pointedly asked you if that's what you were implying here. Well, look, I want to give Messenger.
My thing is this: either that, or there has to be some kind of mental situation going on. There's either the choice to be disingenuous and be a con artist, or there's an as yet undiagnosed mental situation going on.
All right, I want to give Messenger a few minutes to respond to that, because that was a pretty heavy accusation. No, not faulting you for what you believe, Kyle, but go ahead, Messenger.
Wait, I mean, a few Messenger minutes or a few real minutes?
No, a couple, few, 2 or 3 actual.
I gotta work
minutes.
tomorrow, guys.
Cool.
No more Messenger minutes.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Go ahead, Messenger.
Responding to Puffaluffagus, you make an assertion that I remind you of a con man. What is it that you think that I'm trying to sell to people, or I'm trying to influence to people for my own benefit? Like, what evidence do you have that I'm providing a service or a result for any type of monetary gain?
Because of the fact that this is just like, so it's not that you're promising the answer, right? The answer to a nebulous question, a question that is yet to even be defined. But I have the answer.
Which nebulous question specifically?
Your nebulous question of, I can lead you, I can show you the truth of the Lord, right? And I can lead you to actual evidence of him, right? So, and I can address the problem that is preventing you from reaching this goal, right? Whereas the question may have never even been asked, right? You're promising an answer to fix these people or bring them to God to fix their problems to a nebulous, as yet unasked question. And basically, you're to me, what it seems that you're doing is you're hanging out this, I have the answer, to hopeless people, or people that have lost hope, lost a conviction that they can address the problems in their life themselves. And the thing the reason I say that is because just in the back and forth between you and David McGinnis, there was 2 different options given or paths given to how to address or discuss a problem that someone's having, right? And those 2 things were either to probe further and ask questions, or to fall back on what you think you know and to make determination.
Sam, what I suspect personally is that your general strategy is to probe people, to break them down, make them emotionally vulnerable, try to get into their head a little bit, maybe even help them overcome some problem, and then try to attach the fact that maybe you were able to help to some other concept that you want to be pushing for whatever your reason is, whether it's God or whatever else, or the fact that you're a prophet. So that
that's the problem.
Yeah,
that's
so
the problem.
I think no.
It's a big problem.
No, I had a problem with con artists even when I was still considered myself.
You guys have
Christian.
been hurt by so many losers out there.
I wasn't hurt with jack
shit.
shit.
Whoa, point of order. Stop talking over one another. It doesn't translate to the audience. Okay. So,
okay, well, let me respond to Puffluffagus before somebody else chimes in with their banter.
Well, it wasn't
it's just saying the same stuff. It is. It's reaffirming the same position, which is.
Well, hold on, Messenger. Let me call you out on something, okay? Because you make all these claims about being in control of your emotions and not getting down in the dirt with people and everything. And you just got snide with David. He wasn't bantering. He was trying to make a cogent point that added to what Puffluffagus said. Okay,
he was repeating the same thing, dear John.
Well, no, the reason
formulating it in a different word and adding something to it.
I agree. He reformulated it in different words, but he was making the same point.
What I'm adding to it. What I'm adding to it is I think that's probably your general strategy, and I've seen this strategy from a lot of people. I see the same strategy from tarot card readers that try to say, oh, there's problems in your relationships. That's right. They look for a trigger point. They look for something to get people emotional. They try to get them caught off balance, and then they say, well, these can reveal the truth, or I can reveal the truth, or this, let me read your palm. It's common fucking con man fucking startup, and I think the reason you said that you didn't want to do it on camera is because if you tried to do it on camera, everybody would see through your bullshit.
I would do it on camera with any human being, but it has to be one-on-one. So let me respond to both of you in your bullshit, and I'll tell you why. Number one.
It has to be one-on-one now. It has to be one-on-one now.
Number one. I'm going to respond to both of you. Yeah. Both of you have just asserted, drawing your own projections, that there must be some hidden agenda. I don't care about you believing in God or not believing in God at all. That's not my problem. I'm here in this community because I've been accepted by certain people in this community because I'm helping people become better versions of themselves. I don't care what your religious beliefs are. I don't care what your political beliefs are. I don't care what your secret communities and your ostracized communities. That's not my problem. I'm here to help human beings become better versions of themselves. And all of you, in your skepticism and projecting your crap from the shit that's happened to you with other theists, assume that my agenda must be the same as others. That's my point. And when you sit there and when you ask who else is helping people believe in some magical God? Theists.
Pagans.
You have pagans. You guys have pagans out there.
What about Reiki? What about Reiki? Reiki, I consider that same category. Which pagans
do you have out proselytizing agnostic and atheists?
Ones
None.
that are being fake psychics.
Zero.
No.
Zero.
There's plenty of people who act like fake psychics. There's that are doing it from sort of a pagan
because
background. There's also people doing shit like Reiki, and I put it in the exact same category.
Well, again, you are projecting your prior knowledge and experiences on me because there must be some hidden agenda. Because I haven't provided you any evidence. That was my angle. I've given you zero evidence. And you keep talking over to me because you want to keep asserting a point that's untrue and unfounded. You have no evidence of my mission or my purpose or my intent, but you keep asserting it as if I'm like these other theists.
Okay, so then what is your mission?
I told you, and I've made this clear, help people become better versions of themselves based on my understanding of human behavior, period.
No, but the difference here, and I'm just going to point this out, okay? My assertion is...
The difference is I'm a theist and you're not.
It's very different. Now you're interrupting David, Messenger, so you keep calling people out for interrupting you. He got 2 words out of his mouth and you jumped on him. Go ahead, David.
No, I'm saying that you're claiming to be a prophet. That's in a different category than theist. I have lots of theist friends, right? When somebody claims to be a prophet, now my fucking bullshit meter starts to go off. And I don't know whether or not it's because you have an agenda or a mission that is making you do that, or that you have some deep internal stuff where maybe you didn't have a lot of respect for yourself or you didn't feel important, so you built some kind of unconscious strategy to elevate yourself in your own mind and are using that to justify helping people in good faith. That could be the case. You could be a little bit deluded. But I have no reason whatsoever, and I don't think that you have the ability to demonstrate at all whatsoever that anything that you do, even if you were to talk to me and pull out my deep-seated inner torments and help me through them, I still wouldn't fucking believe you were a prophet.
But I don't need you to believe that I'm a prophet, and it doesn't matter to me. You asked if I believed I was. I told you the truth. I didn't hide from it. I didn't run away from it. I said I was.
But I asked you,
and there you go, talking over me again because you have an inability to listen.
Go ahead. I have a delay.
My definition. You didn't have a delay. You want to interrupt. My definition of a prophet is revealing information that hasn't been previously revealed. It has nothing to do with fortune telling, being the prophets of the Old Testament that the Hebrews talked about. You asked if I believed I was a prophet and didn't ask me to define it or what that meant. You drew an assertion and lumped me in with all these other woo people, all these other, charlatans, all these other people that have negatively affected you, and therefore you need to sit there and stand up against them because I sound like them.
Hey, it sounds like a duck. Let me walks like a duck.
And you sound like an ignorant human being who doesn't want to be curious about what I have to share.
Let me step in here. Let me. Mikey Oliver joined us. I want to let him, make a comment, and then I have a question that I need to ask my good friend, the Raging Atheist.
Yeah,
so,
I was like, I would like to jump in. So let Mike jump in, and I'll
And so go ahead, Mike, and then I got a question for Raging, and if Raging wants to talk, but just take a minute and give us your thoughts, Mike.
You guys can skip me. I know Raging's been fucking chomping at the bit over there.
All right.
Go ahead, Raging. All
right. Well, here's
pass my time to you.
Here's my question to the Raging Atheist. Not that there needs to be any motivation to this conversation. By the way, if you're just joining us out there, audience, welcome to the Messenger Reveals versus the World. And Raging Atheist, what question is it that you could ask that would just be throwing a hand grenade into these proceedings?
I need Messenger's permission. I'm not going to do it unless we're going to fucking just go brutal.
Okay, here's the thing.
Messenger knows what I'm talking about. I mean, so here's the thing that I've just been sitting here loving this. So for the whole Messenger versus the world thing, Messenger loves this shit. This is what he lives for. So I am just sitting here just watching, and me and Messenger have an understanding. We don't agree on nothing, but we love each other because we fundamentally are brick walls that aren't going to change, and we are honestly trying to help people. And that being said, he knows I disagree with pretty much everything he says, and we still have this mutual respect. But I'm not going to say it because, like I said in the chat, it will go to 6 a.m. And it has been a dumpster fire that, I mean, I'm sure, like Jim, you was a part of it, I believe.
So let me ask you, Messenger, do you know exactly what it is that Raging's referring to?
I think so. I think he's reopening up the can of worms on a previous dumpster fire.
All right, so yeah, I'm not going to wait. Let me out. Okay, hold on. Come on. I need to drive this bus for just a minute. Okay. I don't know why I'm so delighted right now. So Raging, is this thing that you're talking about bringing up, is it like an acronym that starts with the letter P?
Yes.
Okay. And now Messenger's smiling, so perhaps he, wouldn't, be too upset if he brought up.
I mean, Messenger loves this shit, so I mean, it's totally up to him. I'm down to watch it ensue. I'm saying,
well, Mikey Oliver here, and then also I want to apologize to Jim Majors and Mr. McCobb. We haven't gotten you in here in a while, and I definitely want to get you back in here. There's a lot of people here. We can go as long as you want tonight, folks. I drank a lot of coffee today. So Messenger, would you be upset if that subject came up?
I wouldn't be upset with it, but I don't think that rehashing it with the things that we've been discussing so far, I just think it takes it down another rabbit trail of.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it will not be.
We've done this before. If you want to have it, if you want have another P-word part 2 on the Raging Atheist channel, let's do that.
I mean, and to be honest,
I mean, I've been having fun. So I've been in the chat and I've just been kind of like trolling because like this is like the Raging Atheist on the GDC. So I've been letting like new people introduce to Messenger. Like I said, I love the guy. Like he's brutal.
And let me add,
straight up is attack, defend a little, and attack.
And let me add to that, Nakasuchi, because and we needn't really invoke what we were talking about. This discussion's going along fine without it, but it just kind of delighted. It kind of delighted
a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of delighted me when because I knew as soon as he mentioned what it was he was talking about. But at any rate, okay, so much like Nakasuchi. I don't believe or buy into a lot of what you say, probably the great majority of it. But, and you tell me if you agree with this, Raging Atheist, I have actually contacted John, since we became friends, on more than one occasion and bounced things off him and got his advice, much like I have with other people in this room.
I'm telling everybody in this room that John is a great human being. I love him as a human being, and we can disagree until we're blue in our face, and he will always be a beautiful human being.
And hey,
and you have sought his advice before, haven't you, Raging?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
definitely.
so and much like I've talked to David, he's helped me. I've talked to Jim, at different times. So
I just want to say, John, just so I know,
go ahead, David. Go ahead.
I just want to say, look, Messenger, I'm not saying that I think that you're a bad person or that you don't genuinely want to help people. I am saying that the source of the information and your intuitions that you're claiming, I think, is irresponsible. And I'll tell you why. When people believe that somebody is, let's say you talk to somebody who does believe you're a prophet, right? And you're not, which I believe you're not, whether you believe it or not, right?
Do you believe there's any prophets?
No, I don't. So,
I don't either.
So here's the thing. If somebody does believe you and you give them bad advice, they're liable to take it on the fact that you're a prophet. In the same way that if somebody believes in tarot cards and they have their future read, there are people who will be inclined to make major life decisions based on something that is bullshit. And I think that adding prophet to your moniker and acting as somebody who is providing counsel is irresponsible and a dangerous behavior. And I don't know if you if you realize that yourself, but that is the problem that I'm pointing out. Not that you're a bad person or that you're ill-intending people or that you're not trying to, get a bunch of money, right? But that's what I want to say.
Is it free counsel?
There's two things that I want to respond to, and then I'll answer that question, Mikey. So responding to David, he said he thinks it's irresponsible that I would, because I never come out and say, hey, I'm a prophet. When people ask, I say, yes, I am, because I'm not going to lie in terms of my own self-awareness. As far as you saying it's irresponsible, or it could be misleading, or it sits there and puts me in a position of power authority, I'm the person and I'm the human being who is taking on the 2.4 billion Christian community in the world, probably greater than most of yourselves, because I'm attacking that community from their own worldview and telling them how they're wrong, telling them how they're out of salvation, telling them how they don't authentically act like the one they say that they serve.
So all you're trying to do is make another kind of Christian. I've got news for you. Look at it. There's Pentecostals, there's Baptists, there's Catholics.
Here you are. Here's
hold
the
off,
problem.
David. Hold off.
Problem, David. Every time that I'm making a statement about something, you're relating it to your prior knowledge and experience with other people who aren't me. You have an inability.
Is that a problem, or is that something that's the only thing I have to do?
You have an inability to sit there and be curious about what makes me unique from everybody you've interacted with before.
So
that's one of your problems as a human being.
So you prefaced our conversation saying that the only thing we have is our ability to work on our past experiences and whatnot, and we both agreed on that. And now you're criticizing me and saying that my problem is the thing that we agreed, that is the only ability we have, and I think that's bullshit.
No, and let me respond to that statement. When you have an awareness that goes on, then you have a true awareness to be curious so that you can overcome that confirmation bias, that you can overcome those predispositions that you have as a human being. So when you're aware that it's prevalent in you and you continue to do it, it demonstrates that you really don't get it.
Yeah. You say that an awful lot, Messenger.
David,
hold on. David, hold on. I got 3 words out of my mouth. And then, look, you say that a lot, Messenger. You say that you don't get it, you don't understand. You're being too skeptical. I mean,
what you say and how you act is incongruent. That's my point, and David agrees with me.
Look, I just want to put the offer out there to Jim Major. Huh?
Remember Mikey had a question?
Well, he threw a question.
He
did, but
the one little thing that I would want to put in is with the whole prophet thing, Do you receive compensation for any of the meetings that you have with people?
No.
Okay. I just
Other
wanted
than-
that as like a point of order. Like,
Other than an intrinsic value of helping others.
oh, get out of here! Quit trying to score brownie points.
So who is
That
Just
because
the
that has
smiles
value.
of
That has
just
value.
the smiles of children. You know.
No, you realize that we do things intrinsically and extrinsically for our own pleasure and benefit. So I'm not saying that I'm some selfless son of a bitch. It's enjoyable to be useful, to be helpful, to have value.
That is true. But that was
so
a very
Jim Majors or Mr. Macabre, you guys have not been able to get in here in a while. Is there anything that you want to get in here and say?
I've been finding this conversation really fascinating. I'd actually love to talk to Messenger in further detail about this, because I am curious about what he's actually thinking, and I do agree that people are automatically criticizing him for associating what he might have to say with shit they've heard before. However, I am skeptical, and I do think that it's a lot of grandiose claims that I don't think he will be able to substantiate, but I nonetheless think would be very interesting to listen to.
I, on the other hand, have been staring at the texture on my wall, trying to find patterns and looking at little shapes, because that's far more interesting than this conversation.
Oh my God, Jim! You just made me think about ritualistic suicide for a minute.
Cody, seppuku.
So, all right, boy, I'm getting that echo back. And
it's just in your head.
No, it's not.
Oh,
somebody's freaking echoing back at me. All right. Well, look, where
are you hearing voices, John?
Well, I'm a prophet, so no. So where do we go? Where do we go from here?
I have a topic.
Do we want to switch topics? I mean, Macabre just was saying how fascinating this was, but
probably for me, but I can understand how a lot of people would see this as boring as watching cow shit dry in a field.
All right, now before Mikey, he says he has a topic, but I want to, before you throw your topic out there, we got some people that have been here a lot longer than you. Is everybody cool with Mikey bringing a new topic up, or was there something else one of you guys that have been here all night want to talk about?
As long as it doesn't suck.
Can we talk about how much we hate Kyle Curtis just for the next hour?
No.
Mike, leave, go, door.
I think we can move to the next topic, because this horse, we keep beating it, we're gonna make it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but it's even though Messenger thrives on this, it's all we're doing is
I don't have any dog in the fight with that.
Look, I don't. Stop. I don't hate.
Doing it. We're doing it.
No.
Well, wait a minute, Mike. Well, let me ask you something. So, is this topic you're bringing up, is it related to the non sequitur issue?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's been like 65 videos in the last 24 hours. We can all chill.
Yeah. Go ahead, man. What is it you wanted to talk
about? I don't know who I don't know if we can do a show of hands. Who's in America? Well, I guess it concerns everybody, but who's in America? I know David's not.
I am.
Just about everybody else except for Macabre and David, maybe.
Yeah, Macabre's in Australia and David's in Canada.
Okay.
Rest of us in the U.S.
So my question to the panel is: do we need to amend the Constitution to allow us to prosecute sitting presidents?
No.
To prosecute what?
Sitting presidents.
So we have processes to impeach a sitting president, and then he can be indicted. So I think that the system as it exists, it functions properly. I see no reason in removing the impeachment process.
I do. One, I mean, because I might be wrong because I'm the Canadian, but it seems to me that if it's a very slow moving process and there's like an artificial degree of protection that doesn't need to be there. Like if Trump's in office now, so we'll use him as an example. If he punches some reporter in the face, right? For no, like, apparently no reason. He should be able to be charged with assault, because that is something that we would expect, that we would hold the people who are running any country, I would hope, to the standards of any other citizen so far as their ability to obey the law. And to say, oh, well, we're not going to treat you the same. We're going to first go through this whole big thing and decide if that was appropriate, and then we'll maybe remove you from office if we decide that that was good enough, and we're going to get all political about it because we'll have like this team versus that team, rather than just charge the fucking guy because he broke the goddamn law. So I don't know. I think maybe, yeah, amend it.
Well, here's the thing: is there's no standing law in America that says that you cannot charge a sitting president with a crime. All it is it is a long-standing precedent that has been established
Well, it's not even a
by
precedent.
the Justice Department.
Well, yeah, it's not
they
even
have a policy that they will not charge a
right.
sitting
Yeah.
president.
Well, there's the word. You finally got it. It's not a precedent. It's just it's a policy. It's a guideline.
Well, no. What I'm saying is their policy, their adherence to that policy, has set a precedent in American government.
Well, I mean, well, no. See, as a matter of fact, and this is the thing that blew my mind over the last few years here. Back when Bill Clinton was being investigated, Ken Starr, the head of the investigation, had one of the lawyers on his team write a paper that Ken Starr was trying to change that policy, and he said pretty much what you just said. There's no legal standing to say that you can't indict a sitting president, and that was all good for Bill Clinton, and then now people want to ignore the fact that opinion was put out there, that legal paper was put out there back at the end of the 1990s, that there is no barrier to indicting a sitting president. I mean, even with the DOJ having that policy, if Robert Mueller had decided he wanted to indict Donald Trump, he could have done it, but he chose to follow the policy when he was beholden. He was not beholden to do so.
Yeah, and I understand that he did that because he wanted to remain to retain the appearance of impartiality, which I respect that. But I think that the reason why we're not going to see a shift in that, or any desire at the federal level to shift in that policy, is simply because with that policy standing, it provides more protection for members of the Senate, whether it's the House or the Senate. I'm sorry, members of Congress. Sorry, whether it's House or Senate, that they are somewhat protected, at least from the perception of the American public, right? That they can't be chased after legally, right? And so
why not?
They no longer have to just rely on their friends in Senate and in the House to protect them from this judicial action. They now have this misconception of the American public that you can't come after them, right? And we know that senators and House of Representative members are far more likely to engage in outright corruption, outright breaking of federal laws, because they feel that they're immune to the consequences. We know that that's more case. Now, this president is a different case, right? He's like, just like them. He's like, I'm going to break every rule. I'm going to take every chance I can. But prior to this president, we know that senators, House of Representative members, even on a state level, they're more willing, or they're more often the ones that are going to get caught outright breaking the law.
But even Trump aside, going forward, like even if Trump does whatever Trump does, and he gets caught for whatever he gets caught for, and whatever, let the chips fall where they may. Moving forward, should we amend the Constitution and make it so that we can go after presidents who do things that are illegal, not just unethical?
Are you saying like just like to clarify it better so that there's like
correct?
This
so
is,
that
yeah,
because
yeah,
so
I
that
think there should be,
so that that legal loophole is no longer there for them.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I get in trouble, I get prosecuted. I don't know that that's the case for DC.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we should hold so if we believe that somebody is qualified enough to be the representative of an entire nation, we should hold those people to very high standards, and providing them loopholes to weasel their way out of be able to do sort of things that the general public isn't able to do. I mean, obviously they have the ability to do some things the general public isn't able to do, but so far as like things that we would consider actually wrong or illegal that are illegal for a reason, you know, I'm not saying like, you know, throw the guy in jail over a parking violation or something like that, because you know, but like a serious crime that, you know, has caused some harm or, you know, is fraudulent or things like that. Yeah, I think that there should be prosecution.
Hey, I'm just awful surprised though. Mikey interjected a political topic here, and my good
That's
friend,
cool.
but no, my good friend, the Raging Atheist, hasn't said a word, and he has a second channel called Move Left.
Yeah, I stepped away, so I'm not even sure what we're talking about.
I can say the question again.
Yeah, go ahead, throw it at Raging. See what he has to say about it.
Do we need to amend the Constitution to allow us to prosecute sitting presidents?
I think honestly, we need to look at our Constitution and very seriously, see it for the archaic piece of paper it is, and make a new one altogether. That's my opinion.
I'm with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't object to that, depending on what was on the new piece of paper.
Yeah, I think it would have to be discussed thoroughly, but I think it's time to. I mean, you know, our country has come how far since we've written this piece of paper, and we're going to hold stock in what these people thought long ago. This is a completely different world, much less completely different country now, and we need to seriously look at everything. That's my opinion.
Yeah, fair. I don't disagree with that.
So you don't think that the Bill of Rights is still relevant today?
I think parts of it are.
Parts of it, yeah. I think it needs to be much more extensive. I think we need to look at issues like gun rights. We need to look at issues like freedom of religion, money and politics. You know, we need to really examine a lot of shit about our country, and you can't do that until you look at the Constitution, because the Constitution was written for a country that no longer exists.
Well,
but there are parts of the Constitution that would be necessary in deciding that, right? Like the Constitution is the whole reason we have this system of checks and balances. Without the Constitution, that would fail.
Well, yeah, you could only do it by the Constitution, so it would require a constitutional convention.
Well, so here's the thing:
to pretty much overturn and rewrite a new Constitution. I admit I'm an extremist, you know, but that's my opinion. That's my honest opinion on everything.
Well, here's the thing too. Jim led me this, Raging, and that's what I want to ask you. You kind of got into it, but I want to get a more specific answer from you, because essentially what would happen here would be like a process of where you're rebuilding a ship plank by plank while you're at sea. You know,
I'm not necessarily saying throw the entire Constitution away. I'm saying look at it.
Right. Okay.
You know, evolve it.
Because you do know the process, the complicated process there is even in amending the Constitution.
Dude, I am a part of the movement to ratify states towards the constitutional convention just for money and politics, overturning Citizens United. You know, So yeah, it's very difficult. But what I'm saying is we need to go farther than that and look at the Constitution as a whole.
How is that still a thing? How do we not vote that out already?
I don't even can have because because we live in an oligarchy and businesses rule our government.
Yeah, I got to tell
that's
you,
a big problem.
Two of the most damaging legal decisions. I think I've said this before in Hangouts, but is the ruling that money is speech and that corporations are people. Those are two of the most nonsensical decisions that the judiciary ever came to.
Yeah, it's certainly they do add an extra layer of fucking shit to proceedings, don't they?
Yeah. Look, let me.
We're starting to shatter it, though. I mean, real quick, like we are starting to shatter it. AOC, and I know that name is
trigger.
But I mean, AOC completely defeated one of the main establishment candidates of this country using social media and using her feet going door to door. Things are changing. Demographics are changing. More and more states are coming on board. So, I mean, we're close. I mean, we're getting closer every year, and it's going to happen. We're going to change this fucking country, whether they like it or not.
Wait a minute. Jim, are you wearing a headset?
Uh-oh. Oh,
I think
Sorry,
I
I was on
found.
mute.
Sorry, I'm just gonna take the time to say I completely ignorant of American politics, so I think I'll take my leave.
Okay.
Well,
Can I ask my question?
Trust me, UK politics are way more interesting. I know you're not UK, but like I find UK politics far more interesting than American
Hey,
politics.
Macabre, before you leave, I was about to bring something else up if that matters to you.
Yeah, sure, mate. But yeah, I still wanted to. It's lunchtime here, so I was also
okay.
planning on getting some food. However, yeah, thanks for the
Are
chat,
you
everyone.
Are you going to go eat like a kangaroo sandwich or something like that?
No, I was gonna make some pasta.
Oh, okay. All right. I just have this
Koala
weird koala hot pocket.
Actually, I'm not a big fan of kangaroo meat. I like venison, but kangaroo is too temperamental. It can turn to the consistency of rubber in just a few seconds.
it's got a bit of a kick to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, fucking hell.
You got to smoke it.
Well, hey,
Slow.
Mr. Macabre, is there anything you want to plug before you leave?
No, Messenger, love to have a chat in the future. Love to also have David in there as well. But yeah, actually like to pick your brain and see what makes you think that you have this insight no one else has.
Sure. Anytime.
Cool. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Later, man.
So yeah, I'm starting to get triggered over that freaking echo. But anyway, so here's something I wanted to ask tonight, and I was hoping James was going to be here. He wasn't able to make it tonight. He was going to be here last night, and I'm talking about James from Modern Day Debate. And I don't, if he's listening or sees this in future, I don't want him to think that I'm trying to pick on him or anything. I don't think he made a bad decision in doing what I'm about to bring up, but I do want to ask the question. There was a debate on Modern Day Debate the other night, and one of the participants was J.F. Garepi. Is anybody? J.F. Garepi, G-A-R-I-E-P-Y.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Mr. Ethnostate.
Right.
I have strong opinions about this, John, but I'll let other people go first.
Okay, and so what my question is that as content creators, those of us here that are, I'm not, but those of you that are here that are content creators, or someone like James on Modern Day Debate, and again, I'm not trying to imply that James did anything wrong by having him on, but I do want to ask the question: should we be platforming what I'm going to term bad actors, such as J.F. Garepi?
No.
So here's the thing, right? It's really easy to say, hey, let's not platform bad actors. Like, and I understand why you're going to say this, Mike, right? Because he supports an ethno-state. I think he has bad goals. I think I disagree with his politics. He seems to be an intellectual to some extent. He seems to be somewhat
it almost makes his opinions worse, though, that he's
yeah. Like, I don't think he's a stupid person from the little bit I've seen of him. So I mean, if we're defining bad actor as he has different goals than us, absolutely. I don't think that I mean, we brought him in for a debate on non-sec, right? And we had him debating with another gentleman that was African American, and they both wanted an ethno-state. So it like the fact that he wants a white ethno-state, I mean, it's a bad idea, but I would debate a black ethno-state person too, right? Like, I think that's just a bad idea. So do we deplatform that person as well because they have that? You think so? Because yes. I think that we should shine light on bad ideas and show them to be bad ideas. Like, that's my personal idea.
Well, you talk about shining a light on bad ideas, but the other side of that was pointed out to me in the past is that, okay, you bring a person on who has bad ideas to show the world their bad ideas and bring light to it. Okay, but the only problem with that is then in your audience there are always going to be people that that believe what the person is saying. There's also going to be people out there that are on the fence about what they're saying, and maybe this person will have an influence on them to fall to the side of the fence that we don't want.
And you know what? Maybe somebody else will. That's a risk in every conversation, right? There is a risk when we have any conversation, right? Like you're an atheist, right? There's a risk if you bring a theist in here that there's going to be somebody on the fence that becomes a theist. Are you going to stop platforming theists? No, just because there's a different disagreement. Now, I mean, we could measure that, we could say, well, the idea of an ethno state does way more harm, and I would take that as a valid objection, sure. But I personally, I'm against the idea, generally speaking, for deplatforming unless it's calling for direct violence. That's just my position. Now, I'm open to counterpoints on that. It's not like I'm assaulting.
So
Raging, yeah, go ahead.
I actually agree and disagree with David. So here's my thing, because I platform hatred every single day. It's what I do as the raging atheist. I think you should platform hatred in opposition to that hatred. So if you're gonna have a white supremacist bigot person that calls for an ethno state, and I don't care how clean he says it will be, that includes violence and that includes atrocity, then if you're going to have him on your platform, need to confront that directly. And you shouldn't give him legitimacy. And I was very vocal in the chat. You shouldn't give him a legitimacy in a legitimate debate. The debate should be, why are you a douchebag? And that's what my channel is about. Anybody that's ever seen my channel will know that I am being 100% right now. That is what I believe. I platform hatred to call it out, not to give it credence.
Yeah.
And especially here in the States, that's obviously a risk, because me and Dave had a very long discussion with Macabre, who just left. You should have stayed, dude. We would have got to you. But his understanding of what has happened in the history of this country is very different than me and very different than David.
Yeah, that's true.
Giving people certain platforms is very risky for other populations. So yeah. Oh, well, I'm just letting him get his ideas out. Well, those ideas are very dangerous to other people's. And just because certain people don't feel the weight of that hammer doesn't mean that the hammer is any lighter. It still damages us and it still hurts us.
And let me add to that, Mikey. Okay, and look, sometimes people have ideas that are independent of another person that had the same idea. So I don't know if I coined this phrase or not, but I came up with this over 15, maybe as many as 20 years ago, and I call this concept unleashed propensity. Yeah. Okay, and that is that the more that media grows, the more connected we become in the world, the more that every story that ever happens, every incident that ever happens, goes around the world faster and faster. Then there are people in this world that may have certain propensities that can be unleashed. Okay, so in other words, back in the 1800s, there were serial killers. Okay, but many people in the world never heard about them, okay, because there wasn't all this informational technology, okay. So now you get to a point now here today where something happens, and in a day it's around the world, and anybody that's connected knows about it, So all of these bad concepts, whether it's racism, homophobia, misogyny, people that hold those bad ideas. Now they have these outlets to get those ideas out to more people. And then you have all these people out there that maybe had no outlet before for these propensities that they have, but now you plant an idea in their head, and now they're going out and being bad actors.
Well, I mean, I guess some people feel, I guess that certain people, a certain percent of the population feels like that's okay, because that's the price of free speech.
Can I get 2 minutes?
I just want to say that if somebody wants to host these bad actors and wants to host them opposed, I have no problem with that. And I don't even really have a problem with them hosting them on unopposed, so long as they're not speaking relative to their horrible belief. But as the person, as the host, you are accountable for whatever happens on that show. You are responsible for whatever happens, if you let him go down that rabbit trail, then every second he does that, those words might as well be coming out of your mouth, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and with a person like JF, you just never know when that's going to happen. Not to mention like the atrocious behaviors of him towards his mentally challenged girlfriend. I mean, this shit's all over the place. Like this dude has some serious issues outside of the white supremacy and ethno state bullshit. Like that's what I was saying in the chat. It was like, James, because a lot of times I don't think James understands quite what he's getting into. He's pretty, like, he's just a genuinely nice guy. Like, you know, when I was in there with G-Man, he had no idea who G-Man was. Like, he couldn't understand why people were reacting to G-Man the way they were. And that's just who James is. So I don't even think James quite understood who the fuck JF was. And that's why I was like, James, do you understand what's going on here? Like, do you know what you're stepping into?
And real quick, hold on, Dave, real quick. Puffaluffagus was trying to get in there a couple minutes ago, and we kind of stopped on him. He wanted a minute.
He's not in the room.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I had muted because I was in the process of changing out bong water. I apologize. So here's my question, right? Okay, so give me 2 minutes. Okay, so I understand and side with both positions, right? Okay, so here's the position. Basically, what Mikey espoused was a position that's called no tolerance for intolerance, right? Which is that you don't have tolerance for positions or beliefs that are directly grounded in intolerance, right? However, I do believe that, and I understand that motivation, because, you know, the thing is, if you have tolerance for intolerant beliefs and systems of ideology, then that gives a chance for people to hijack the system, right? I understand that. However, I also agree with what David McGinnis said, in that these things do need to be addressed, and they need to be, it's something that you can't systematically try to silence out or take their platform away or take away their voice. But when they are presented, they need to be expertly refuted. Yes. What I mean by that is, you need to say, if you had a JF on, you would need to have counter to him either Sean from Sean and Jen, or more aptly, Three Arrows. Both people are, you could, if you have any reasonable following on YouTube, you can send Three Arrows a message. He will get to you and figure it out, because the number one thing that he tries to educate is against the source methods that are used in the white in the ethno state community for dog whistling and things like that. Yeah. So you have to be prepared well ahead of time. Like Raging Atheist, you have to be prepared well ahead of time to know what the talking points are going to be, how false they are, where they were grounded, and how to dismantle them very quickly, because you almost have to have an RJ Downard version of an anti-Semitic, or an anti-Semitic. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you have to have someone that's literally like a Google on ethnostates, and that's where it becomes a tricky situation, right? Now, the thing is, people make missteps, and the thing is, the Dunning-Kruger effect affects all kind of people. We saw this affect the team of, and I'm not getting on anybody. We saw this affect the team of non-sec, which was, they thought that they were together well enough equipped to handle two staunch ethnostaters, which that's not the case. In that case, you would have needed at the very least.
No, that's not the case.
No, I'm saying,
we didn't know one of them was an ethnostater. We didn't know.
But even if one of them was, right? Even if one of them was, but the question was,
we were surprised.
An ethnostate, right? But even if one of them was, we already knew that one of them was, right? So at the very least, sitting in on that panel in the Waiting to Win Something should have at least been a Misha Griffin with half an ear, right?
Yeah, personally, I objected to having JF on non-sec with the pairing, because I wasn't familiar. Like I said, well, you know, this guy's very controversial, and I would want to have somebody equipped to. I thought that it was a rushed decision on Kyle's part to bring him on.
Let me get it. Hold on. I was trying to get it. Hold on. Okay, look, I want to address something on this topic that's from the live chat and see what you guys think of it. And okay, so Lamed student, and you some of you touched on it a little bit already, but Lamed student, one of the mods on this channel, said the question about JF is, was he promoting ethno-state during that debate or not? If he wasn't, then the point is moot. Now, my position. It came up. Hold on. But here's the thing: even if it hadn't, my opinion is it doesn't matter whether it was talked about in the debate or not. If people know who this guy is and they see him in a legitimate debate, then they get the idea that he himself and his ideas are legitimate.
Yeah,
I don't.
Not only that, but when you put two ethno-statists together, then I mean you're inevitably asking for trouble, even if the debate isn't anything about that, right? Like the thing with Nonstick, you know, even though he didn't know about it and the topic had nothing to do with nationalism, they both ended up agreeing on nationalism in the end.
Okay, but here's the thing. What I'm saying, though, is I'm saying, like in that modern day debate, okay, there was nothing to do with JF's horrible beliefs. It was just, I didn't even remember what the debate was about. But the idea that he's there, that in some way legitimizes him. And I think that's wrong.
Well, if somebody does have, like, so if there's some person out there who's a right-wing person who supports an ethno-state and they have their own program that hosts debates, they're welcome to bring Jay off in to talk whatever they want, because you know what, that's their free speech. I may disagree with them 100%, but they're going to do what they're going to fucking do. But if you run a thing and you're bringing on people to debate on things and they hold ideas that are morally reprehensible, then that's about the only damn thing that they should be there to debate. Because if they're just there to debate some other thing to make them look smart, then you're going to get
like Raging said, he brings people like that on, but he brings them on to go at them about that. You know, and now so and in the chat, you know, like they're saying, well, but the debate wasn't about ethno-state. That's not the point. The point is if they're in there, it's almost worse that they're there talking about something else. Well, it is worse that they're there talking about something else instead of their horrible ideas, because then people see that, and as I said, it legitimizes them, and
they warm up to them. They warm up to them.
I personally do not want to have any conversation with anybody that holds these reprehensible ideas outside of those reprehensible ideas. And I want to be calling it out, and I don't want to be discussing, is God real, with a fucking white supremacist. I want to be saying, why are you a fucking white supremacist? That's what
exactly.
I mean, let me ask just putting it to the chat and see if I can get him to respond to chat. Lamed student.
Well, because
hold on.
Can
I please finish? Okay. Sure. Lamed student, you keep saying it doesn't matter what bad ideas they have. If they're not debating those ideas, you know, hear them out. Okay, would you have, and sorry for invoking this, I know it's a fucking fallacy or whatever, some fucking internet rule. Would you have Hitler on to debate, you know, like homeschooling or something like that? You know, as long as he didn't mention gassing Jews. I mean, come on, man.
God wins.
We can have those legitimate conversations with legitimate human beings. The only conversation I want to have with a white supremacist is, why are you a douchebag, and why are you not living in the year 2019? Why are you still in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and go the fuck on? That's the conversation I want to have with that guy. Not, does God exist? I'll have that conversation with a legitimate Christian.
And I think that's kind of like a mistake that a lot of people fall into, is where they kind of try to look past someone's faults because of some other argument, and because they want streams on their channel and they want other things. Like, that's important. That's a first step as for a culture and for a society to progress. These kinds of things need to get shut down, period.
Right.
And that's the thing.
I don't care if people get upset that, oh, well, my white supremacist channel got shut down on YouTube. Yes, because that's negative towards society. Sorry. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There are certain things you can't do.
Yeah, you have free speech, but you don't have freedom to violate the terms of service of these platforms you're using. You know, and we all take that. I just got a strike because I got overzealous with the pumpkin thing, and I ran some sexy ass pumpkin pictures on one of my live streams, and there's a fetish clause, and I violated the terms of service. You know what? I got that strike. I'm living with it. You know, that's fucking life. You know,
what an adult thing to say. I made a mistake and now I'm dealing with the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, don't violate the terms of service, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
Thank you,
Damn,
David.
Jim left. I was going to say the thing I think we all agree about here is that you can't let them run from. If you bring on somebody of that, you have to address that first and foremost. Hey, you are a known ethno-stater. You're a known white supremacist. You're a white nationalist, whatever the case may be. These things have to be brought to the forefront. You can't let nobody slide. And
Real
unfortunately, Jim left. And I was going to
Yeah.
say that that's his specialty. Is when he gets in debates with people, like he do with SJ all the time, and that's why she won't debate him anymore. He's like, yeah, we're debating this, but the fact is, you hold these other beliefs that are abominable beliefs, and I'm not going to let you run away from that. I'm going to keep your feet to the fire.
The Raging Atheist does the same thing. And on the fact that Jim left, let me just say, hey, thanks, Jim, for coming by.
Thanks,
Jim's YouTube channel is The Disciple of Kairos. Please go check that out. And we will have him on again soon. I love having Jim on. So. Look, I looked down at the clock here. And I can't frickin' believe it. We're coming up on 3 hours.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I can't believe 3 hours. Yeah, Messenger ate up a good portion of that. I am going to
don't put that shit on me. A lot of you ate up that portion.
I didn't mean it.
Not me. I was sitting here sucking it in, Messenger.
I didn't mean it in a bad way, Messenger. I didn't mean it in a bad way. But just so you know, the title. Who else do we just lose? Oh, Puffaluffagus. Thanks, Puff, for coming by. And
we call him Snuffleupagus.
No, the screen name.
That's copyrighted.
The screen name is Puffaluffagus, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I am going to have to change the title of the video to Messenger Reveals versus the World plus other stuff. And I think that because I am such an old man and it is coming up on 1 o'clock, I think we're going to wrap this up. I'm glad that we did get to a couple other topics so that it wasn't all about slapping Messenger around. That's allow me my fantasy, John. And again, when I asked Messenger to come on and be the featured channel this week, I never in my
beat up channel.
Well, that's just it. Never in my mind did I figure that we're going to springboard off of that and talk about him.
You let him talk.
Well, right. Well, that's just it. And as the interview went on, the little short 15-minute interview went on, and as I looked at the faces of everybody else in the room while Messenger talked, and a few people interjected during the interview, I knew that. Yeah, this is where we're going to go after the interview. I knew that was going to happen, but
Hey, I have to say that the Oscar goes to Muppets for responses without words.
Oh man, it was classic. Like I felt for the guy. Like I'm like, this is your first time with Messenger. It gets better. Like it gets worse, but it gets better.
Well, let me
before it gets better.
Let me mention too, if I can remember, but thanks to Godless for coming in. She came in and interjected a few good thoughts there on free will, and I wish that she had hung out. Muppets in Cheshire had it out early, and they are part of a 3-person team along with Dave McGinnis, who is still here. And they're going to be launching the Slippery Slope channel here real quick. It's already up on YouTube. You can go and subscribe to that. You can go over there
stop teasing these people with real quick, Jim. It's going to be at least September.
Well, no, but that's
I'm doing it right now.
But that's just it. If you subscribe now, you'll be sure to get the first notification. You can actually go over there and support their channel, even though they haven't put the content out yet, and that will help them get the content out quicker. So
it absolutely will.
Yeah,
so,
and then again, Messenger Reveals, our feature channel tonight. Please go out and check his channel out and check his content. And Mikey Famine, I'm not sure. I think you told me before you do have a channel that you're about ready to maybe start putting some content on called We the Deviants. Yeah, We the Deviants.
We the Deviants is my handle on Twitter, but the Deviants is the YouTube channel.
The Deviants, and it's not the Deviants as in multiple deviant. It is Deviants as in IANCE. Deviants.
The term, not the
Right. And then of course we got the Raging Atheist in here, who, I mean, he's got a lot of stuff. He's got the Raging Atheist channel, beating up on bad thinkers all the time, and now he's got his Move Left channel. He's going to be putting a lot of stuff up there about the presidential election, and he's one of our almost weekly guests. So I want to just thank all of you for coming tonight. And as I say your name, just give your final thoughts. And David, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry for jumping in and taking over a little bit. I've had a lot of pent up frustrations the last few days. So you might have got a bit of the brunt of that there, Messenger. Sorry about that. But yeah, everybody, I hope that it wasn't too boring when we were just going at it, trying to be convinced. And yeah, sub to the Slippery Slope Show. Animation is hard. It'll come in time. Hopefully we'll get there.
and Mikey.
At We the Deviants / YouTube, whatever that nonsense is. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun. It's been real. I got to go to sleep. I got to work in 2 hours.
All right, Mike. Thanks for coming by. Messenger.
Well, I want to say thanks for having me on. Thanks for featuring my channel. I appreciate all the challenges and criticisms from anybody on the panel. They're always welcome. If anything that you took away from what I was trying to make a point for is truly to have a more empathetic viewpoint. Learn to see the world through another person's view, not yourself in that situation. You know, feeling what people feel is not an empath, as the world is incorrectly done. Empathy is truly seeing the world from another person's viewpoint so that you can have unconditional empathy, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional love, so that you can heal from all the shit that's happened. So I hope that's what you've taken away. Be curious. Don't be judgmental.
All right. And Raging Atheist.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just encapsulated why we have developed the friendship we have, John, is you know, I'm the Raging Atheist, Nakasuchi, but before anything, I'm a humanist, and I like to understand human beings, what motivates them. I like to stand up for human beings that don't have the voice that I have or that other people might have, and I do it in all shapes and forms, and that's what I'm all about, whether it's politics or what I do on my YouTube channel. And that's why I can cuss out Darth Dawkins for being the disingenuous douchebag he is and get along with Messenger Reveals, even though we disagree on 99.9% of everything. So, you know, that's what I take from this is I really enjoyed seeing the Raging Atheist on the GDC, and we'll do it again.
All right, brother. Let me just say, too, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Next Saturday, we won't have as big a panel, and my apologies to some of my regulars, because next Saturday we're going to have on Dr. Misha Griffith and her husband Jerry, and we're going to have on Digital Hammurabi and his wife Megan, and we're going to do a double feature of channels next week. And hopefully Nick has said he's going to try his best to be here, whereas I will interview one of the couples about their channel and he will interview the other couple, and then we will have a history-based topic that night. It will all be history, and I guarantee you of one thing: you, after the interviews are over, you will hear very little from me that night, because I just love listening to Dr. Misha and her husband, and I love listening to Dr. Josh and his wife. So,
it's going to be fun to listen to.
That's my new girlfriend. Dr. Misha is my new girlfriend.
I got to tell you, when I referred to her in a tweet as the historical oracle, and she messaged back, "Oh, I'm stealing that." And then not too long later, she sent me a DM, and her name, she changed her name to Misha parentheses the historical oracle parentheses Griffith. I was like, wow, you know. So yeah, that'll be fun next week. And thanks to everybody for coming by. Thanks again to Steve for allowing me to do this. And I always try and close every stream with a quote. And this week's quote is from my favorite pseudo-intellectual. That's me.
Hi,
Courtney. Courtney. What?
Sorry. That's sneaking in.
But anyway, no matter how contentious discussion should never be a battlefield. It should be a collaboration of understanding. Good night, everybody.